ही जल्द start करने वाले हैं. So have your snacks and another 5 to 10 minutes we begin with today's everybody. Hello, hello, mic check. Hello, hello. A very good evening, everybody present over here. I request you all to please take your seats so that we can begin with our grand evening for today. I request everyone to please take your seats. सभी settle हो जाएं please, ताकि आज का कार्यक्रम हम शुरू कर सकें. I hope everybody is in the hall. अगर कोई आपके colleagues, कोई team member missing है, please give them a call or a text so that they can be present over here. Okay, so should we start, ladies and gentlemen? Give me a thumbs up. I should know that we should start. Okay, perfect. Let's begin with today's grand evening. एक शेर से शुरुआत करती हूँ. जी कहते हैं खूबसूरत सा एक पल किस्सा बन जाता है. खूबसूरत सा एक पल किस्सा बन जाता है. ना जाने कौन कब जिंदगी का हिस्सा बन जाता है. खूबसूरत सा एक पल किस्सा बन जाता है. ना जाने कौन कब जिंदगी का हिस्सा बन जाता है. होता यूँ है कि मिलते हैं कुछ खास लोग ज़िंदगी में. होता यूँ है कि आप जैसे मिलते हैं कुछ खास लोग ज़िंदगी में जिनसे उम्र भर का रिश्ता जुड़ जाता है. आभार, अभिनंदन, आदर. मैं चांदनी आप सभी का आज के इस कार्यक्रम में तहे दिल से स्वागत करती हूँ, इस्तकबाल करती हूँ. So ladies and gentlemen, I delightfully welcome each one of you to Consonance, Symphony of Ideas. Today's evening is organized, curated and designed by PMS Times. आप सभी अपनी ज़िंदगी में से कीमती पल निकाल कर आज हमारे बीच यहाँ आए हैं. Everyone, can we have a round of applause for all of you? Come on everyone, give it up a round of applause for all of you. Okay. So let's begin with today's grand ceremony, which is a Consonance, Symphony of Ideas. सबसे पहले, I would request Mr. Varun Pal to kindly come upon the stage so that we can welcome our fellow guests. So everyone, let's have a round of applause for Mr. Varun Pal. So कुछ guests के मैं नाम लूँगी जिनको हम stage पे invite करेंगे, and with a small token of love and appreciation, a small bouquet, we will be like to welcome our very honored guest. Okay, so let's begin. सबसे पहले मैं स्टेज पे बुलाना चाहूँगी मिस्टर मिहिर शिरगांवकर. एक बार जरा जोरदार तालियां हो जाए everyone. Give it up for Mr. मिहिर शिरगांवकर. A round of applause won't mind, guys. Come on. इनके बाद मैं बुलाना चाहूँगी मिस्टर दीपक मलिक. एक बार जोरदार तालियों के साथ लेट्स वेलकम मिस्टर दीपक मलिक. Next, I would like to call on stage Mr. Viral Berwala. एक बार जरा जोरदार तालियां हो जाए for Mr. Viral Berwala. Okay, let's begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the formal session today. सबसे पहले मैं stage पे बुलाना चाहूँगी Mr. Harbeer Singh to kindly come upon the stage for the welcome note and to brief you all about the event. A round of applause for Mr. Harbeer Singh, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Chandi, and thank you everyone for being present here this evening. I know it's hot and sultry outside, and it's very unpleasant to venture out of your homes and offices, but I'm honored to have you all here on the first ever PMS Times Consonance, a Symphony of Ideas. And most of you would be aware as to what PMS Times is, but I'd quickly like to run you through what the idea of PMS Times is and how we are working towards creating a different approach towards alternates as a whole and focus towards PMS and for distribution fraternity, that is distribution fraternity which is present here today. I'm sure more will join in a little more while. So I'll take about 10 minutes of your time to run you through a quick presentation and explain as to how the ecosystem for PMS in AI works right now, and explore the opportunity that presents itself right now for the next 10 years. Exploring the opportunity of in PMS and AIF. So what is the next big thing that the investors are looking at? All of us are wealth managers here, advisors here, we have clients, and I have a few investors also here. The biggest question that we always face as advisors as well as investors is where is the next big gold rush? Investors basically are already saturated with the fact by investing in mutual funds, real estate, and all other products that are traditionally available. So what are they looking for? A simple slide, this is a research report by AIF. This is of course 2022 report, but it gives a very clear picture as to where the investor is headed and what exactly is he looking for. If we look at the numbers behind us, 73% of HNIs and ultra HNIs are looking at generating that extra alpha. So they're looking at alpha generation and creation of new sources of wealth and alpha in their portfolios. 73%, a whopping 73% of the population is looking at generating alpha. 64% of that population is looking at portfolio diversification. And a meager 9% is looking at managing their portfolio volatility. And 27% of the total investor population looks at diversifying their portfolio risk. अगर हम इसे थोड़ा सा डिटेल में समझे तो क्या हम ये जो वो जवाब ढूंढ रहा है क्या वो जवाब हम दे रहे हैं? That is the primary question that should come to our minds. वो ढूंढ रहा होगा अल्फा, हम उसे दे रहे हैं management of portfolio volatility, reduction in portfolio risk. But the investor actually, the ultra HNI and HNI investor and family offices, what are they wanting is new sources of alpha generation. तो वो risk लेने को तैयार है, लेकिन हम उसकी risk mitigate करने के ऊपर focus कर रहे हैं. तो क्या ये सही approach है? That is the question that comes to mind, and that is what we try to answer here. If you look at the preference of the A-list products that investors are looking at, of course, equity right at the top there, expected to grow at about 19%. Alternates are growing at about 9%. But what is more interesting is the fact that the traditional investment products are actually degrowing or growing slower than other products. What is growing most, aggressively is unlisted equity and global investment. Apart from that, alternates are growing. Mutual funds is growing at about 5%. But what is not growing is cash, insurance, and pension funds. Of course, this is global report, but this is how the investor is based. When we see a 19% growth for equity, obviously the investor is willing to take that risk, right? He's more excited about taking risk. So what is the next approach for an investor? India is the next wealthy. That's something that we all agree upon. We all believe in the India story. That's why we are here, and we've been graciously grown in the India story, all of us, in the last 20, 25 odd years. So what is happening here? What is happening is investors are transitioning from retail to HNI to ultra HNI, and that will bring forth the need for customized wealth solution, curated products. The demand for these products is going to be really, really high going ahead. Are we prepared for it? So Indians, the next wealthy. In 2020, the total number of ultra HNI population in India was about 12,000, expected to grow at 39% to about 19,000 by 2026. This is just 3 years down the line. HNIs stood at about 7.5 lakh, expected to grow at about 75% to 14 lakhs in just 3 more years. आपका हमारा क्लाइंट एक रिटेल से HNI में आया और HNI से अल्ट्रा HNI में भी जाएगा. उसे कस्टमाइज सोल्यूशन चाहिए होंगे. क्या हम वो दे रहे हैं या हम वही 27% और 9% वाला सोल्यूशन उसे दे रहे हैं? That is the big question that we all need to answer. So in 2021, about 38% of the population was sub $5,000 annual income expected, and about 2% of the population, earning population, family income wise, greater than $35,000 per annum income households were about 2% of the total population. What we see here is a massive degrowth in people earning from $0 to $5,000 per annum over the next few years. It will degrow by about 58%. But what is more exciting is if you look at the top, the growth is massive. We are looking at a 350% growth by 2031 in the household incomes above $35,000 per annum. So obviously, the next wealth is in India, and the next wealthy are Indians. Nuanced products, curated portfolios, creative ideas, it is all happening, but are we participating in it? A simple chart throws open a very exciting number. PMS and AIF have been growing dramatically. PMS has grown at about 14% in the last about 10 years. AIF, on the other hand, has grown at about 50% plus. So total portfolio, total PMS AUMs on SEBI, in SEBI records, as per SEBI records, as on 31st of April 2023, stands at 4,72,000 crores. AIF, as of 31st of March, stands at roughly about 8 lakh crore. We are talking of a collective 12 lakh crore of total AUM, which is already parked with PMS and AIF or alternates as a whole. Are we as investors or distributors participating in this rally? That is the big question that we all need to answer tonight. A reality check. Total number of PMS investors roughly about 1,28,000. I've just shared the number, 4,72,000 crore lying in PMS alone. That brings forth an average AUM per investor of about 3.68 crore. Now by 2031, if I take you back to the previous slide, how the number of HNIs and ultra HNIs are going to grow, this 1,28,000 should double or maybe quadruple by 2031. Imagine what that number will be once you have 5 lakh investors, 7.5 lakh investors, or 1 million investors investing in PMS or AIF or any other form of alternate investments. So the PMS industry is expected to grow at a whopping 6x by 2031. We are talking of 6x growth from today's roughly around 12 lakh crore to 24 lakh crore. So PMS industry वहाँ खड़ी है जहाँ 2013 में म्यूचुअल फंड इंडस्ट्री खड़ी थी. म्यूचुअल फंड इंडस्ट्री एग्जैक्टली 2014 में 13 में 14 लाख करोड़ थी, right sir? So roughly about 14 lakh crores. Today the mutual fund industry sits at 43 lakh crores. PMS today sits at 12 lakh crores. In 10 years, it will be sitting at where mutual fund sits today. If we don't participate now, when will we? So that brings me to PMS Times. What do we have to offer? That was basically showing the opportunity and the path forward. PMS Times started in January of 2023. Me and my partner Varun, we deliberated for about a year. In fact, the entire of 2022, me and him were working on PMS, understanding what PMS is, the gaps, identifying the gaps, and trying to figure out if we can plug them. Spent 1 year in figuring out everything, and we came up with this idea of PMS Times. So what does PMS Times bring forth for everyone? PMS Times basically would be a bridge which will bring forth a product comparison and analysis for distribution and investors. It will be a lens for the distribution fraternity, which means it will, so our preamble is very simple. A seller of a product needs to be more aware than the buyer of the product any which ways. And we are in a industry where knowledge reigns over everything else. If we are not aware of a product, how will we ever pitch it to the client? Or even we would even figure out that what solution he needs exactly. We are solution providers, clearly. So we would, over the next few months and years, we would be bridging the gaps between investors and distributors and of course the manufacturers to bring them all together on a platform and grow together. A 360-degree solution which would entail research support, training support, tech solutions, customer care, and sales support, all under one roof. Tech, we are working on it. It will take some time because unlike mutual fund, PMS AIF mein tech data is very scattered. So you do not have the comfort of a CAMS or a Carvi who's managing the entire accounts and giving out an NAV, managing the units and everything. यहाँ पे सब कुछ scattered है. हर fund house का different solution है, platform है, different tech solution use कर रहे हैं. उनको एक umbrella के नीचे लाना काफी मुश्किल है, but we are working on it. My colleague Varun is working out on developing a solution, engaging with developers to bring forth a solution that makes your and our lives easier, including the manufacturers that are sitting here with us. So this is the right time to look at PMS in AIF. We are at a point, or rather we are standing on the runway ready to take off in the alternate space. It's a huge opportunity with very less competition. Bankers बेचते हैं और कोई बेचता ही नहीं है. Bankers के अलावा किसी को ये बेचना भी नहीं आता. उसका एक बहुत बड़ा reason है. We can take that offline. I'm short on time. Customer retention tool है. Customer अगर आपके पास कोई PMS का solution मांगने आता है तो आपके पास में वो solution देना हमारा काम है. It's a gateway to HNI and ultra HNI. Why should they always be the periphery of the bankers? आप और हम वो solution क्यों नहीं दे सकते HNI को? आप और हम क्यों नहीं जाके उन्हें ऐसे products दे सकते जो उन्हें वाकई में चाहिए? Quick growth of AUM 50 lakh से minimum ticket शुरू होती है. So obviously the growth of AUM is very quick. If you sell 10 tickets in a year, you're talking of 5 crore addition to to your AUM, and a fair and exciting revenue model that is there. So in the I often come across questions when I'm speaking to distributors, MFDs that why should I look at PMS or AIF when I have mutual fund? I always tell them, sir, this is not PMS versus mutual fund. It is PMS plus mutual fund at all times. आपका इन्वेस्टर आज नहीं मांग रहा है पीएमएस, लेकिन कल मांगेगा। उसके लिए रेडी होना काम आपका है, वो आपका काम ही नहीं, वो आपका कर्तव्य है कि आप रेडी रहें। आज आप इसको इग्नोर करेंगे, कल इन्वेस्टर आपको छोड़ के जाने की पूरी तैयारी करेगा। So it is MF plus PMS and it is not MF versus PMS. So as I said, we intend to be a bridge between the distributor, investor and manufacturers. So we are already tied up with 100 plus manufacturers, that is PMS and AIF strategies, and are focused towards providing accurate information, research report and actionable analysis for advisors, distributors and investors all put together. Some of the few names, of course, 4 of them are present here today. We have Mihir from Phillip Capital, we've got Arunji from CapGrow, we've got Viral, my old friend from Buoyant, and Deepak ji from Northern Arc, who are going to share their insights with us tonight. With this, I thank you and welcome you all to the evening tonight. Let's go out of here together more knowledgeable with better ideas for our investors.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harbir Singh. Now, I would like to call on stage Mr. Mihir Shirgaonkar from Phillips Capital to kindly come upon the stage and present the presentation that he's prepared for all of us. एक बार ज़रा ज़ोरदार तालियों के साथ, let's call on stage Mr. Mihir Shirgaonkar.
Very good evening to all of you. We begin every discussion with the fact that India is indeed the next big story. And with this backdrop, I am here presenting a case for making global investments. It may look ironic, but let's begin. So the very first question, I'll directly address the elephant in the room. Why should we consider global allocations in the first place? In the past so many years, there has been a lot of awareness about global markets. There have been a lot of avenues for global markets opening up. There is a lot of curiosity, but at the same time, especially HNIs and ultra HNI investors and even retail investors, so to speak, they are updating themselves with what is happening around us. Today, every discussion is around inflation in the United States, the US Federal Reserve, Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, so on and so forth. So with this backdrop in mind, why consider a case for global allocations where we know for a fact that India is indeed one of the best performing markets in the decades to come? So this is a 15-year history of some of the largest equity benchmarks in the world. We started, so typically we've taken a comparative analysis, starting with 2008, if everyone started with 100 in their respective currencies. Then over a 15-year period, this is something that would have happened. Now, why did I take March 2008? All of us know it was the 2008 crisis. Volatility was at its peak, and wealth advisors such as all of you would have advised that now is the best opportunity to allocate for the long term. So this is what has happened over a 15-year period. As we can see, Nifty indeed is one of the best performing benchmarks. But it is not the best performing benchmark, as we can see, and this is where numbers are speaking for themselves. The best performing index, in fact, has been NASDAQ. And this is considering the fact that NASDAQ has corrected by 33% in the year 2022 in the entire technology meltdown. Even then, on a CAGR basis, or let's say on a cumulative basis, what is happening is NASDAQ has really outperformed Nifty 50. Of course, a comparison between Nifty 50 and NASDAQ may not be an appropriate one because one is a very, very technology-heavy benchmark versus Nifty 50, which is very, very diversified. A better comparison could be Nifty 50 and the S&P 500. So this is a similar, in fact, the same set of numbers. Nifty 50 versus S&P 500. Of course, in the last 15 years, Nifty 50 has done better than the S&P 500. The question is, what am I doing here then, if Nifty 50 indeed is the best performing benchmark? The question which we really need to ask is that yes, we can see that a benchmark to benchmark comparison surely shows that Nifty 50 is outperforming. But if you as an investor would have invested in a portfolio of S&P 500, what would have really happened? So two things would have happened. First is that you would have converted your entire Indian rupees into a dollar portfolio and then invested those dollars into S&P 500 because you are investing globally. So the total returns that you would have made over a 15-year period would be a function of two things: the underlying returns of the S&P 500, and of course the fact that the dollar itself has more than doubled in relation to the Indian rupee. After 15 years, when you are reconverting your portfolio back into Indian rupees and doing a rupee to rupee comparison with Nifty 50, this is what is happening. The true comparison, rupee to rupee, is the white line versus the green line. Okay, as we can see, that the impact of currency depreciation or Indian rupee depreciation itself has magnified the returns of the S&P 500 for an Indian investor. So that is the first value proposition, what one can consider when investing globally. The impact of rupee depreciation vis-a-vis the US dollar. Of course, just like any other asset class, even the dollar is having its own cycles of ups and downs. But over a longer period of time, this is something that has unfolded, and this is something that we can reasonably expect, at least maybe a 1 to 2% depreciation going forward. Last year, the dollar gained almost 10%, and we cannot expect 10% every year. So of course, I mean, the same table, if you look at a calendar year returns, we can see that there are some years in which Nifty has been the best performing index, and then there are certain years in which the Nifty has not been the best performing index. A major chunk of the returns in the previous decade actually have come from the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Okay, if you see, especially since 2016, NASDAQ, except for 2022, has been consistently outperforming other benchmarks. And I will come to that very, very shortly. So that is the next question, that why should we consider global allocations? Because here I've really spoken about what is it that has really unfolded. But question is, we are in 2023, and if all of us were to have this discussion again in 2033, what would have really happened? What we are seeing is that today across the globe, there are disruptions across businesses and across regions. A lot of disruptions are happening. Typically, we are talking about Industry 4.0. Today, even Indian retail investors want to know about what is happening in the semiconductor space, what is happening in the artificial intelligence space, robotics, electric vehicles, genomic revolution, so on and so forth. There is ESG investments, there are climate change investments, a lot of things happening. And these are exactly the kind of opportunities. I mean, Harbir sir did mention that roughly 45% are looking at capitalizing emerging opportunities. We are talking about ideas which we believe will drive the next leg of global growth. I mean, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, some of these digital disruptions across businesses and technology disruptions did take a back seat. But we really see a lot of them coming back to normal. In fact, during the pandemic, a lot of bigger organizations actually took the opportunity to advance their digital disruptions. And the result is more profitability, stronger balance sheets. And that is what we have over here. Last is, of course, mitigating single country exposure risk. So again, this is where I borrow some points from Mr. Harbir. Just like the question that we ask is PMS plus PMS plus mutual fund or PMS or mutual fund. Similarly, in this case, it is not about whether we invest in India or we invest globally. It is plus. It is India and global. That is the combined portfolio that we should really be targeting. Because all said and done, despite the best of the India story, there is always a single country exposure risk which investors are exposed to. And it will always be a good idea to diversify away some of this exposure, not only in terms of different geographies, but even currencies. So this is just the summary of what we mentioned, what we are really doing by offering our products, which I will now come to shortly, is we are enabling our investors to mitigate single country exposure risk. We are helping investors evolve in a very, very dynamic investment landscape. Of course, we are building them build dollar portfolios. A lot of HNI investors typically come with the objective of sending their kids abroad, maybe after 10, 15 years, and they really want dollar assets to be created. So there is one way in which one can consider global investment so that the impact of rupee depreciation can really be factored in. And of course, the biggest value proposition is that we are enabling our investors to capture the trends of today and the ideas of tomorrow. So with this, I take the opportunity to introduce our firm, Phillip Ventures IFSC Private Limited. Now, Phillip Ventures IFSC is a part of the Phillip Capital India group. We have more than 4 decades of financial expertise. We set up as a firm in 1975, headquartered in Singapore. Today, we have a presence in more than 15 different countries. We operate in the major financial hubs across these countries. Across the globe, we are servicing more than 1.3 million clients with more than 40,000 plus products and $35 billion of assets under management. Even in India, we have a very strong institutional business, more than 20 years into the institutional business. Now coming to Phillip Ventures. So Phillip Ventures IFSC is a new offering. It is the Gift City business. So what we have done is that we have domiciled also in Gift City. We are a part of the India business. We have set up shop in Gift City. In fact, we are one of the first firms to set up a presence in Gift City with the sole purpose of evolving a range of offshore products, typically focused on investing in the global markets. Because today, Gift City has a separate regulator, it has a separate jurisdiction which specifically permits investments into the global securities. So today, investors need not go to regions like a Mauritius or a Cayman Islands or a Luxembourg. They can directly come to Gift City and meet their global investing needs. Today, we are running the global PMS. We've also started offering global advisory, and we are servicing clients across countries. And this is a very unique thing that today, HNIs and ultra HNIs, even outside of India, are coming to Gift City, coming to Phillip Capital, in turn to invest in the global markets. I mean, all these HNIs, typically in the Middle East or maybe Africa, they have their own avenues to invest in the global markets, right? Even then, they come to Gift City, and they are really showing that kind of confidence, not only in Phillip Capital as a brand, but even Gift City as a jurisdiction. And this is something which wealth advisors should take a note of. So the pillars of our process, Phillip Ventures IFSC. So typically, we are staying very true to the philosophy of Phillip Capital, which is a very strong focus on fundamentals. In fact, those of you who know Phillip Capital also know our institutional research team. Some of the best research in the industry comes from our firm. What we are doing in our Gift City entity is that we are combining this fundamental approach with data-driven capabilities. This combination, we believe, enables us to analyze sectors, regions, and themes in much more detail. Because there is so much happening around us, there is so much noise around us, that a combination, which is a fundamental analysis with data-driven capabilities, really helps us eliminate this noise and capture trends across regions. And similar to our philosophy, which we are following in our India business, especially on the PMS and the advisory side, we are offering products with a very, very long-term focus in picture. What we are really doing is we are enabling our investors to invest in those areas which will generate decent returns or even higher returns over a longer period of time. We are really looking at investing in some of these high conviction ideas which may or may not be investable in India today, but the listed space in the US markets allows investors to capture these opportunities. And I will come to this shortly. And last is, of course, seamless implementation. Now, it is our endeavor as a firm to play a very active role in the evolution of Gift City as an ecosystem. And what we are really doing is that it is our endeavor also to make the entire process very, very seamless for our wealth partners as well as our clients, be it in terms of the onboarding, be it in terms of the fund transfers, be it in terms of the documentation around LRS, so on and so forth. So we are really enabling them to make it very, very seamless. Now the process. What we are doing at our end, because we are monitoring global markets after all. So today we are analyzing more than 60 different unique business ideas. Again, this is with a combination of a data-driven approach and the fundamental analysis. Now, what do we mean by these 60 different ideas, and why is it that I am making a special mention here? Today, when we look at the global markets, what we've really realized is that even within a sector, like particularly, let's say, a sector like healthcare in the US, now within healthcare, there are different businesses like a genomic revolution, there is medical devices, there is digital wellness, there is pharmaceuticals, there is biotechnology. Now, within healthcare, there are 5 different businesses having 5 different dynamics of their own, and they are completely functioning different from one another. So it is very difficult to completely categorize them as single healthcare. We are really analyzing these different business ideas in greater detail. Similarly, technology. We are enabling investments into areas like semiconductors, robotics, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles. All of you tracking the global markets do know that semiconductors, okay, some of the largest semiconductor firms have given 150% return on a YTD basis. And our products have enabled investors to capture that upside as well. Similarly, regions. Investing in the US markets alone gives us access to certain products, which in turn allow us to invest in more than 50 to 60 different regions across the globe. I mean, who said global investing was all about investing only in a US or a China? There is this entire European belt, the entire South American belt. There are countries in Southeast Asia. They have different dynamics of their own, different macroeconomic indicators, different geopolitical considerations as well. And then there are there are opportunities for making returns amid the entire chaos that ensues at times. I mean, very simple example, Taiwan. With so much geopolitical tension also, anyone actually monitoring the Taiwan space would know that Taiwan has been one of the best performing country-focused exposures in recent times. So that is exactly where our analysis and our approach helps us eliminate the noise from the insights. And that is exactly how we go about investing. So now coming to the products, so we started our global desk with the global PMS. So our flagship portfolio is the Philip International Pioneer portfolio. We are actually managing money under this portfolio. It's our 18th month of operation. We started in 2022 January. It is an equity strategy where the focus is to have investors allocate to innovations and regional developments. Similarly, there is another product which we are looking at coming up shortly, which is the Philip International Universal Portfolio. Now, this is a multi-asset portfolio which is comprised of exposures across different asset classes and different regions. A new service on the block is the Global Advisory, which is a curated collection of investment ideas. The advisory desk is really committed to providing expert advice so that investors are able to take well-informed investment decisions. And the advisory product, so while the global PMS is specifically catering to HNI and ultra HNI investors who are looking at a slightly lower ticket size can actually look at accessing the global advisory solution. So the research remains the same, the expertise remains the same, but we also have the feasibility to actually create products to cater to slightly lower ticket size investors as well. So with this, I come to the end of the presentation. Just summing it all up, what is it that we are providing in Gift City? We are providing dollar-denominated investment solutions. We are investing in US-listed securities, typically capturing growth stories across innovations and regional developments, and we are investing for the long term. And then finally, Gift City. So as you may or may not know that today Gift City is India's own offshore jurisdiction. It is completely distinct from SEBI and RBI. It has its own regulator by way of IFSCA, which is the International Financial Services Centers Authority. Now, that is the regulatory body which comes under the government of India. And that itself gives investor a lot of comfort because while Gift City is an offshore jurisdiction, investors remitting money to Gift City are assured that there is actually an Indian regulator which has a regulatory oversight. And again, the unique proposition for Gift City is that there are both residents as well as non-resident investors who can access Gift City. For resident Indians, of course, there is the LRS scheme, so liberalized remittance scheme. So while Gift City geographically is located in Gujarat, just on the outskirts of Ahmedabad, but because it is an offshore jurisdiction, for all exchange control purposes, it is considered to be a foreign land. And to that extent, any investments into Gift City will be made using the liberalized remittance scheme. And at Philip Ventures IFSC, we provide complete end-to-end hand-holding to our clients to comply with the LRS requirements as well. And this is where we say that seamless implementation is something that we've really been able to consistently demonstrate with our global PMS product. So with this, I come to the end of the presentation. This is the actual picture of Gift City, something that we've taken from our own office. We really see the cityscape evolving month after month. Really exciting space for wealth advisors also to be. And yeah, looking forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mihir Shirgaonkar. Okay, so should we move ahead? बहुत छोटी सी ऐसा है. Should we move ahead, guys? Thumbs up दिखाएंगे तो मजा आएगा. Should we move ahead? Okay, perfect. So now I would like to call on stage Mr. Deepak Malik, Northern ARC Investments on stage. एक बार जरा जोरदार तालियों के साथ स्वागत करते हैं Mr. Deepak Malik.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Hi. Thank you all, and first of all, I want to thank PMS Times to kind of really give me the opportunity and Northern Arc for us to kind of really be in front of all of you here. Formally, this is my first trip to Chandigarh representing Northern Arc. So it's sort of really very heartening to see so many of you can really take time out to come and hear us. Quick one point I want to highlight before we get into what we essentially do here is we are Northern Arc. And invariably, this sort of happens that we get referred as Northern ARC. Let me sort of clear that notion right at the start that we are not an asset reconstruction company. We are, our name is Northern Arc and not an asset reconstruction. So sort of, I wanted to kind of really put that behind us before we move ahead on this. I'm essentially trying to build on from what Harbir was talking on the opportunity size and how that has sort of really evolved and what is the view on this space going forward. Okay. This is essentially a study done by EY Family Office. EY, and this is the Family Office report that they've done on where is it that Ultra HNI Family Office investors perceive their allocations to kind of really be going forward, be allocated to different asset classes. And as you can see very clearly, one listed securities, no way that we are taking that away as an opportunity, and that sort of yet remains a significant part and allocation that an investor or family office does. And then while fixed income itself is very large, and again, let me sort of really put this one disclaimer. In today's sort of event, I represent Northern Arc Investments, and we are the only debt fund sort of house here, and all the other sort of my co-panelists are essentially representing equity as an asset class, and we only talk about at Northern Arc only the fixed income opportunity. And within that itself, there is a certain sub-segment of that which we are essentially trying to cater to. So fixed income as well as equity remain a significant part and allocation of where investors perceive their future allocations to can really go. And the small aspect which is kind of really one segment that you see growing is other alternate investments, right? So when you talk about equity, again, equity or fixed income, it is sort of all-encompassing as a word, right? So equity includes both listed as well as unlisted. Similarly, fixed income, listed, unlisted, you have, a lot of segment within sort of fixed income, right? So you have real estate, you have distressed debt, you have special opportunities, you have, holdco companies sort of financing. So it's very vast, right? But when you look at it outside these two segments, alternates is a segment which is essentially finding a lot of favor with ultra HNI family office investors. And this is essentially, that recency effect is very visible in this report. The way startups have sort of really garnered a lot of investor attention, mind share, and allocation from family offices and ultra HNIs, right? We as advisors have largely been sort of catering to a sub-segment of, the overall allocation that they do, which is, public markets via mutual funds, and which is, equities as well as fixed income, whatever is being offered via the mutual fund side. But alternates is a space where, you get to really participate in the rest of the ecosystem, which is, startup investing, which is new emerging spaces like, credit investing, as well as, private equity investment, right? When you talk about unlisted equity, it is not just the startup space, there's a lot of, so India's strength, essentially, we all keep talking about is the MSMEs, right? The MSMEs, and the biggest challenge there, and I think there's been reams written about it, on, the access to capital. Access to capital is the biggest challenge for this MSME segment in the country, for them to kind of really grow and unleash, the growth potential that India has. And that is where, a segment of investor allocations have started to kind of really go via alternates. And that is essentially, it is going via a very structured format, via AIFs, via PMS. And that is where we believe, and that's what Harbir was also alluding to, that we as advisors have kind of really, or distributors have kind of really not really partake into that opportunity which investors are currently. What is the growth expected within these segments going forward? So there are a lot of numbers here. Essentially, it talks about equity is the largest allocation in the portfolio, which is at 35%, and the 7-year return is about 41%. That asset. So that asset class is by far the largest, segment which is catering to the alpha that the investor is looking at. The second, and that category is growing at about 13% CAGR. And then you have alternatives, which is again today, roughly about 20% of an investor, family office, ultra HNI allocation is at 20% to alternates, which has delivered about 30%. And when I'm saying alternates, as I said, covers everything, be it private equity, venture, credit, everything gets covered within alternates. And that is the fastest growing segment today at 17% CAGR. Then there is hybrid real estate, debt and gold, right? So when we are talking debt, this is more traditional debt, which is more your, the growth in your bank FDs, post office, corporate FDs. The traditional sort of segment is what is largely catered by debt. As I said, I'm here to talk about a sub-segment of the fixed income opportunity, and that is what is known as private credit, and also known as private debt segment. Within that, there are, how do you rate or how do you allocate capital on the fixed income side? We are essentially trying to look at it from a return perspective. So they are by and large these 3 blocks or 3 buckets in which your returns are sort of classified. One is the essentially the AAA variety, which is AA variety, which is right now hovering around the 7 to 9% kind of annual yield. Which is, again, you have multiple vehicles that you can use to kind of really participate here, right? One is mutual funds, you have PMS, you have alternate investment funds. Those are vehicles that you use to participate. So AA, AAA is largely catered to by mutual funds, and that's the segment I think we all are participating in. Then the other, which is the so-called performing credit segment, which is, from a A-rated to right up to BBB, BBB minus. BBB minus is investment grade, And this is not, so general, and this is essentially coming as a feedback. Whenever I've interacted with a lot of ultra HNIs or advisors, distributors, the moment you talk about bucketing a paper or an entity in the sort of triple B plus, or rather I would say anything outside the A universe, the general perception is that this is junk, this is sort of completely, as a company could be out of whack and hence, not to be even touched with a barge pole. There are enough and more, sort of evolving businesses which are in this segment and which, when sort of approached in a very systematic, researched manner, is a very good opportunity. And that's essentially the opportunity that we at Northern Arc essentially cater to, the performing credit space. And then there is the higher risk variety, which is the unrated segment. And again, which is north of 16, 18, 20% kind of yields, which is where I said you will be talking about investing in to distressed debt, companies which are essentially going through NCLT cases, there are promoter M&A issue, sort of opportunities, you would have LAS opportunities, all of that. So when you have to kind of really plot all of them on the risk return chart, this is how the opportunity looks at the AAA, AA segment, which is the 7 to 9% kind of yield segment. Then the performing credit space, which is essentially the 10 to 15, 16% yield. And then there is the greater than 16, 18% kind of yield. So now this is the opportunity. And there are investors who are sort of participating in all the three segments. We as advisors or distributors have largely participated in the AAA segment. To a certain extent, we participated in the credit via what mutual funds were sort of really offering via credit risk mutual funds. And we've had whatever sort of episodes in the past, and I'm not getting into any of that. But the fact that, because of that opportunity not delivering the alpha that's supposed to do, advisors, distributors have kind of really shied away. And in the process, what we've seen, mutual funds as a vehicle have kind of vacated that space. Right? And that is where you have specialized asset managers who can really coming in and sort of giving you a solution to participate in that space where it is able to meaningfully add alpha to you by mitigating risk, right? At the end of the day, as distributors, our underlying sort of thesis, and I think it applies not just to our sort of investors, but to our allocations as well. How do you, sort of maximize return and mitigate risk, right? That's all what we are all trying to do. And that's exactly what we at Northern Arc are trying to kind of really offer via these sort of performing credit funds. Again, private credit is, so you again classify your assets with physical assets, financial assets. We all know physical assets, real estate, gold, largely as opportunities. And then on the financial assets, you have equity, debt. Within that, equity listed, equity unlisted, and similarly on the debt side. What is a performing credit company, right? Where these are companies where unit economics is positive, their contribution margins are positive. These are companies which are not really cash burn businesses. It's just that they are small regional players, and hence the ability to lend to them at a higher yield is the segment that is the so-called performing credit space. And the very big difference, or rather I would say a highlight of the whole performing credit space is the whole DPI, right? Via funds that, one we deliver and how that whole sort of segment performs. There is this classification, right? So reporting that SEBI is required all AIFs to kind of really do on what is the DPI, RVPI. So DPI is nothing but distributions paid in capital. So if you've invested 100 rupees, how much of it has sort of come to you in the form of coupon or dividend, right? And the best part about this is the fact that a significant allocation that goes into this performing credit space is all coupon-bearing structures, right? These are quarterly coupon, semi-annual coupon. So you are not really seeing your NAV only move up and there is an episode and there is a sort of NAV come down. You're essentially seeing NAV go up and that cash getting realized in hand at the end of the quarter, right? So the very predictable returns and consistent cash flow. So that is a big differentiation for this segment. Unlike the other asset classes, and in particular, I would say equity, because it's that animal is such that it'll sort of tend to be very volatile, and you'll need to kind of really, take that in your stride, and then hence, over a long term, it sort of really averages out. And as Mihir was sort of alluding to, over a 15-year period, you've seen how equities can really perform, be it Indian equity or international equity. Here, you allocate capital, you get regular coupon, and hence you realize the gain that the sort of allocation is designed to kind of really deliver. Yeah. So what we do is at Northern Arc, we essentially structure our funds in a manner that they give you quarterly coupons or semi-annual coupons. We also have done in the past, essentially back-ended or redemption premium structures. But, so depending on what the requirement is, there are structures which are available and something like that. So we are talking about the opportunity. So this can be, as I said, catered to by any vehicle. So be it AIF, category 1, 2, 3. You can, or a PMS or an MF. And this slide is essentially trying to show how mutual funds have kind of really vacated the space. Because that vehicle is not suited for, credit investing. One fundamental point there is the open-ended nature of the funds, right? If you are running a credit risk mutual fund, which is open-ended in nature, and your redemption is paid on a T+1 or a T+2 basis, now that's the structure of how you are participating in that opportunity. And now you look at how the market is, how is the fixed income market in India structured, right? So outside your GSEC and your AAA, there is just no liquidity. So if I have to meet my redemption on a T+2 basis, and that I intend to do by selling paper in the market, we believe itself is flawed. So MFs in that sense, open-ended in particular, are not really suited for credit allocations, and hence they've also been wanting to kind of really get out of. And there are mutual funds who are wanting to launch AIFs to kind of really tap into this opportunity. So the vehicle sort of changes, and hence you also need specialized kind of, credit underwriting assessment for it too. So it is not that, you look at in the coffin rather, was this whole, sort of regulation on that, the tax advantage that MFs had. So that was something that we at One Northern Arc and the entire space were struggling with the fact that if I am delivering a fund which is giving you about 12.5, 13% kind of post-expense yield, but for an investor, he says, 3 साल के लिए पैसा डाल रहा हूँ और उसके ऊपर you pay full tax at 40%, you are left with about 8% or thereabouts. And then when I'm investing into a fund which is, say, for example, again in the 8.5% sort of a post-expense yield, there with indexation I'm yet. So for that 50, 100 basis points of extra alpha, the risk wasn't justified. So I think that also has now sort of gone away, and hence everyone's on an equal footing. So that is where your credit underwriting and your assessment of the whole, the segment is what becomes the differentiator. So there are, so as I said, we have category 1, category 2, category 3 funds. Category 2 funds are, ranging any from 3 years to 10 years. Correct. Yeah. So one, on AIFs, it's on accrual strategy. It's an accrual strategy, and yeah, so practically a significant part of your portfolio is tenor matched. But yeah, the risk there is obviously the credit event playing out. So by no means am I saying here on this platform that it doesn't come with risk. It comes with its own set of risk. But how do you risk mitigate is what we are essentially trying to kind of really do here at Northern Arc. These are closed-ended structures, right? As I sort of really showed here, right, in the 10 to 16% kind of gross yields is where we work on. So depending on what is the tenor, what is the structure, yeah. So what is the risk level at which you want to get in, right, is where these sort of opportunities play out. Very, very pertinent question. Good that you raised it up. See, it's a good company, but the scale is very small, right? So typically, bank doesn't come in very early stage. And the bank funding is so onerous as well, right? You need to give them cash collaterals, you need all banking relationships. And a lot of, promoters of late have also become very wary with banks, especially, these kind of relationships with one primary bank. All your business sort of is sort of being routed through the bank. And at the first instance of a red flag, and we've seen instances where the bank will sort of really, take whatever is there in the account and freeze it to that level. And hence, while you could have still overcome that sort of red flag, now for sure you're gonna, have to wind up. So those are where, so banks do participate, but banks are not the only provider of capital to them. They need a lot of diversification on the liability book as well. So how do you participate in this space? You participate, and we've essentially classified this into 3 segments. One is do your own research, go buy. So essentially like buying a direct stock, right? So everything depends on your assessment, your monitoring, your ability to kind of really decipher the numbers that are there. Then the second would be a syndicated offering, and which is largely done, by so-called investment bankers who are essentially assessing an opportunity and showcasing the paper to you. And mind you that at the end of the day is yet an iBanking transaction, right? He's coming, he's done an assessment and he's showcasing that opportunity to you. Once the transaction is done, he moves on to the next, and then you have to make sure that you are sort of really following up on the company and how that company, because there could be red flags over the, say, a 2, 3, 4 year tenor, whatever you've taken, and how do you action those, and how do you can really safeguard yourself at that time. And then the third opportunity is via an asset manager, it's not an iBanking transaction. He's one who's researching, he's the one who's allocating capital, he's the one who's monitoring, he's the one who's sort of really making sure the corrective action is taken well in time so that you don't have accidents along the way. So these are by and large the three ways by which you can sort of participate in this whole opportunity. Quick lowdown on Northern Arc. We're essentially a debt platform, and we work in the performing credit space. This is a segment where, as I said earlier, anywhere between 10 to 15, 16% kind of yields is what we demonstrate by having significant skin in the game. We have large teams who can really monitor. So it is, when I'm allocating or when I'm sort of really deciding on a portfolio, my assessment doesn't really start from what is the rating of the entity, right? So it doesn't start saying that while I told you that this is how you bucket the opportunity, but when within that I am looking at a security or an entity, that sort of is not as a function of because it's a triple B or it's an A minus or a double A minus kind of a paper, hence I'm evaluating. I'm essentially evaluating it more from an entity perspective rather than the rating. So rating is more ancillary to us because that's something that you as an investor will be able to relate to. For me, this ground level monitoring, which I spoke about earlier, where I'm actually visiting their branches on a quarterly basis to understand what's happening at the ground, what will give me early signs of stress. And that is what we essentially is our differentiation versus just sort of really picking it up from a more macro kind of a viewpoint. Then the other is, we can create bespoke portfolios. These are cash flow sort of structures. All these things that I've essentially spoken about earlier. We as a fund house, we are okay. So this is a group which was started by a bunch of ex-bankers. Northern Arc was essentially started by, these, I don't know, there was this one gentleman, Dr. Nachiket Moore, ex-ICICI Bank. He, along with few friends and colleagues, essentially came together to essentially work towards financial inclusion because there are segments of the market who didn't have access to capital, and the idea was how do you make that access available. And so the idea was Northern Arc was formed where he'll raise money from the market, provide that capital to these NBFCs in select sectors, and help them risk underwrite, help them scale up. So that's essentially what we started off doing, and we continue to kind of really only focus on those financial inclusion segments. Today we manage about 3,500 crores of current AUM, plus there have been about 5 funds which are matured and paid back. So a little more than about 5,000 crores is what we've essentially managed and paid back. Till date, we've not had any accident. That essentially talks about the underwriting that we essentially bring to the table. This is the smallest manner in which I could tell you how do we do our risk monitoring, how do we do our assessment, right? So it is, entity goes through a lot of filters before we even decide to lend from our own balance sheet. And once we do, the entity shares data with us on the end of every quarter, and which is then verified by our risk monitoring team, which is out on the field 3 weeks out of 4 in a month, and meeting these branches to understand what's happening at the ground and relay that back to corporate office saying that these are the sort of any stress or no. And basis how the balance sheet is shaping up, how the repayments are happening with the entity, we also go syndicate for them. If there is any red flag identified, we've sat across with managements, we've sort of really said these are the flags that we have, we would want you to take these 5 steps to kind of really correct it. More often than not, it's done. There have been instances where, instead of 5 steps needed, they've possibly taken 3. We've exercised put options or accelerated our exits, and thereby we have a track record which is what it is. So it's kind of an audit role, but the fact that you do this religiously quarter on quarter without fail, and what sort of really sets us apart is how I would like to really sum this up. So long presentation, but I would like to end now. If you have any further.
Deepak ji, sir, I'm sorry for the interruption. We'll continue with the presentation. We'll have this in a later section, sir. Thank you so much. Chandni? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deepak Malik. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to call upon stage Mr. Viral Beriwala from Beyond Capital to kindly come upon the stage for the presentation. Ek baar zara zordar taaliyan ho jaye for Mr. Viral Beriwala. It's okay. Let me just fix this on. Acha, perfect. Ye aap dijiye. So all your questions, all your queries and doubts will be answered in the Q&A session. In the meantime, you can have a look at the presentations. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I think थोड़ा जल्दी में it's just moving on. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. ठीक है. So the topic given to me is next decade of India, right? In a way, the simplest topic, in a way, सबसे difficult topic है. क्या नया बताओगे मतलब? है ना? सबको सब पता है. आज सुबह GGQ ने 7 पेज का, GGQ is the company जिसने अडानी में शेयर लिए at the peak of the crisis. तो क्या नया बताओगे? उसने आज 7 पेज लिख दिया. The week before Morgan Stanley wrote some 150 pages. So not much you can share, right? So still I'll attempt. तो पहले maybe just 2 minutes. Hindi is okay, right? Good, good. Anyway, India पे बात करें तो हिंदी होना चाहिए. Right. So maybe just 2 minutes buoyant पे. So थोड़ा सा आपको context मिले कि you know why, how we sort of want to invest over the last 10 years, over the next 10 years. So all of us, I don't know, this is running away, but Buoyant is run by 4 of us. 3 of us are chartered accountants, and the 4th person is 30 years veteran, IIT, IIM. Right? All of us were in institutional business. मतलब या तो म्यूचुअल फंड थे या तो सेल साइड थे. रिसर्च बेचते थे या रिसर्च खरीदते थे. You know, one of those two. We kept doing that. और 7-8 साल पहले, you know, you started thinking कि क्या कर रहे हैं. क्योंकि फंड में जो अल्फा था वो कम होने लगा था, राइट? सो आई एंड सचिन, समहाउ इफ दैट स्लाइड कम्स, या ठीक है, यही रखो चलेगा, राइट? सो आई एंड सचिन वर विथ व्हाट वाज दैट टाइम कॉल्ड रिलायंस म्यूचुअल फंड, अभी जो निप्पॉन इंडिया एएमसी बोलते हैं. एंड यू नो 2000 to 2005 हमारा एनुअल अल्फा कुछ 10% था. 5 to 10 इट वाज 4%. By 2013 we were struggling to match the index. So एक thought था कि कैसे अलग करें. You know, clearly we were doing our best. Largest team था industry में. So that looked unsustainable. So then we started looking out. And when we looked out, right, we looked at lot of other markets. तो तभी लगा कि alternatives देखते. और तभी ये सब alternatives के rules आ गए थे. AIF rules had come. AIF rules तभी पास थ्रू टैक्सेशन नहीं होता था कैट 1 कैट 2 में, बट एटलीस्ट रूल्स वर इन प्लेस, राइट? सो वो था. सो एनीवे, तो सोचा कि वी स्टार्ट. सो हमारे पास 2 लाइसेंस है. वन इज PMS और एक AIF लाइसेंस है, या राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव डन. एक्चुअली मैंने उसको PDF भी भेजा था, इफ़ यू कैन ओपन द PDF. या सो हमारे पास 2 लाइसेंस है, वन इज़ अ PMS एंड अ AIF लाइसेंस. PMS लाइसेंस 7 साल से है. वी आर अमॉन्ग द टॉप परफॉर्मर्स. 7 साल का कोई 21% का हमारा ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड है, एंड दिस इज अ क्लीन ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड, मतलब आफ्टर ऑल फीस, एक्सपेंसेस एक्सेट्रा, सो नेट टू इन्वेस्टर. सो दैट इज़ वन, बट वो तो हिस्ट्री है. वी आर मोर इंटरेस्टेड इन वॉट वी डू इन द फ्यूचर. सो दैट्स वॉट वी डिड. हमारा जो स्ट्रेटेजी समझाने जाए तो इट विल टेक अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम. दैट्स नॉट द इंटेंट. So I think the presentation in the deck is in that. So in case you would like, we can sort of have a longish discussion on that. So buoyant चालू इसलिए हुआ कि we are sort of wanting to generate alpha, doing exactly the same thing. तो हम लोग public market investors है, basically शेयर बाजार में काम करते हैं, शेयर लेते बेचते हैं, exactly like not multi cap, it's called flexi cap, exactly a flexi cap fund, एक ही फंड चलाते हैं, and we have entire skin in the game. तो हमारे पास और कोई शेयर नहीं है. सो वॉट एवर वी हैव ऑलमोस्ट 5% ऑफ 1000 odd crores AUM इज आवर सॉर्ट ऑफ मनी. तो सिर्फ फंड के साथ काम करते, वी डोंट डू एनीथिंग एल्स. यस, समडे. सो दिस इज ऑन अस. आफ्टर दैट, सो यू नो पीरियड वाई नेक्स्ट 10 years बिलोंग टू इंडिया, ये वगैरह हाइपोथेसिस क्या है, वाई आर वी सॉर्ट ऑफ मेकिंग दैट स्टेटमेंट. ओके, so some sort of trick questions. लास्ट 10 साल में रेलवेज का केपेक्स कितना बढ़ा है? केपेक्स, व्हाट दे स्पेंड ऑन कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. गेस एग्जैक्टली. सो नॉट अ ट्रिक क्वेश्चन. ओके, सो 10 गुना बढ़ा है ना. उससे होता क्या है ना कि जो दिल्ली मुंबई फ्राइट कॉरिडोर है या द अदर ईस्टर्न कॉरिडोर है, तो अभी पूरे इंडिया का जो गुड्स कैरिंग कैपेसिटी है 950 million टन है. जस्ट ये 2 कॉरिडोर्स आएगा, यू गो टू 1000 million tons, राइट. सो यू ओवरनाइट डबल, नॉट ओवरनाइट, मतलब इट टेक्स लाइक 4 to 6 years टू बी फुल्ली ऑपरेशनल, बट दैट विल डबल. सो बहुत सारे जो बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक्स थे ना आर इन प्लेस. तो वन इज इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, राइट. वो बहुत सारे क्रेजी नंबर्स है, मतलब इवन इफ यू एडजस्ट फॉर रोड्स, सो द रोड लेंथ इज अप 3 times. ना रोड बन गया, उसका यूटिलाइजेशन हैपेंस ओवर अ पीरियड, और वो आपको दिखता नहीं है. मतलब लास्ट मंथ आई वॉज इन जापान, राइट. आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. दोपहर में 2 बजे थे, आई वॉज इन अ सिटी कॉल्ड कोबे. सोचा चल लास्ट दिन है जापान में, हिरोशिमा भी देखी आते. एक्चुअली व्हाट न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब लुक्स लाइक, तो मतलब देखाते. कोबे से हिरोशिमा 280 किलोमीटर दूर है. आई वॉज ऑन द टॉप ऑफ अ हिल, वी वर देयर इन 80 minutes, राइट. गेट डाउन अ रोपवे, गेट इन टू अ शिंकानसेन बुलेट ट्रेन, यू आर देयर. नाउ दैट इज वॉट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डज फॉर यू, राइट. मुंबई पुणे इज 180 kilometers, 5 घंटा लगता है, राइट, डोर टू डोर. सो दिस इज वॉट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डज टू यू, राइट. एंड अब कोई भी कंट्री देखो, राइट, अ लॉट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट हैज हैपेंड आफ्टर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हैज हैपेंड, राइट. आप यूएस देखो, तो यूएस में क्या था ड्यूरिंग ग्रेट डिप्रेशन, दे वाज द मोस्ट फेमस इज दैट वो हूवर डैम बना, बट दे केप्ट ऑन बिल्डिंग रोड्स, राइट. वो पहले आप रूट 66 था, तो उसके बाजू में एक्सप्रेस वे बन गया, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. So every country has, not every, but a lot of countries have developed after उधर infrastructure, right? China ने वो किया, Japan of course, US. In fact पूरे tiger economies ने वो किया था. If you look at even South Korea, they followed the same model. Singapore same model. तो I think जो infrastructure expenditure हुआ है और अभी भी हो रहा है, leads to better outcomes in the future. और वो जो last 7-8 साल में हुआ है, see it all started sometime in 2016. So that is one. So एक hard infrastructure is now coming in place. Now think of soft infrastructure. Soft infrastructure में क्या किया? Soft infrastructure में किया कि भाई आपने corporate tax rate 22% कर दिया. So from highest tax rate जो companies पे होते थे in Asia region, हम सबसे lowest आ गए. उससे क्या होता है? You know, I'll give you some a very silly example. If I take salary from Buoyant Capital, my company, where I am a major, reasonably large shareholder, I pay 35% tax. और प्रॉफिट में कंपनी में पड़ा रहता हूँ, तो आई पे 22% प्लस सरचार्ज, आई पे 25% टैक्स. सो मैं सीए हूँ, तो आई कैन मेक द अदर आर्ग्यूमेंट कि डिविडेंड दोगे तब लोगे तो टैक्स भरोगे, बट पॉइंट बीइंग आई कैन इनफाइनाइटली पोस्टपोन दैट 10% टैक्स लायबिलिटी, और उसका अब करंट वैल्यू निकालो तो बहुत बड़ा अमाउंट होता है. सो नाउ पैसे का क्या हो गया? बॉन्ड में पड़ा रहा, कोई पैसा खाली खाली तो छोड़ता नहीं है. So the capital keeps expanding, right? And company after company, you see that. So एक hard infrastructure बनाया, एक all those regulatory frameworks बनने लगे. मतलब मेरे को आप पूछो कि सबसे बड़ा सरदर्द क्या है? It's not managing money, it's managing सेबी. 6 ऑडिट चल रहे हैं आज, राइट? ये वो, इफ यू रियली ट्राई टू बी कंप्लायंट, इट्स क्रेजी. बट व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इज कि उसकी वजह से द फेथ ऑफ द इन्वेस्टर हैज गॉन अप ड्रामेटिकली, राइट? पीएमएस कोई नया प्रोडक्ट नहीं है. पीएमएस का सबसे पुराना रेगुलेशन 2000 का है, और एंड इट वाज सोल्ड बिफोर दैट आल्सो, राइट? बट इट रियली टुक ऑफ इन द लास्ट 6-7 ईयर्स, जब सेबी ने सब रूल बना दिया. यू विल हैव अ कस्टोडियन, आप क्लाइंट के पैसे को हाथ नहीं लगाओगे, you can only do this, you cannot do 100 things. So it is painful and little bit expensive for us, but usse the investor confidence goes up. Now this industry after industry, you see this regulations working. Most cases, power mein nahi hua hai, but that is the only exception. Power, somehow we have failed. States continue to splurge and a lot of nonsense happens. But other than that, most industry regulators, they are also in place. So that is third building block. Fourth, somehow वो sweet spot में कि टीना है, मतलब there is no option, right? China is now going in the other way. They are regulating more. They are not really in very pro-foreigners, right? Chinese market ऊपर भी जाता है तो नीचे आ जाता है because the amount of foreign money coming out from China, and that's a lot of it lands up in India. I have heard this argument before कि नहीं, Vietnam is doing well for a country that size, and ठीक है, वियतनाम बहुत अच्छा कर रहा है, but remember 1/6 in 1 human beings is in India. Sorry, 1 in 6 is in India, right? तो अपना डोमेस्टिक मार्केट इतना बड़ा है कि it makes a lot of sense कि आप इंडिया में बनाओ, कि डोमेस्टिक में बेच दोगे. अच्छा, लास्ट मंथ एप्पल ने इंडिया से कितना एक्सपोर्ट किया आईफोन्स? टेक अ गेस. 1 मंथ 10,000 crores, राइट? अभी उसमें वैल्यू शायद 500 करोड़ का ही होगा, ओके? वो अपने चिपसेट ताइवान या साउथ कोरिया से लिया, ग्लास चाइना से लिया. बट इसमें क्या हो रहा है ना, द गवर्नमेंट हैज़ बीन वेरी स्मार्ट. पहले कि इंडिया में असेंबल तो करो, राइट? तो दे आर एनकरेजिंग कंपनीज कि इंडिया में असेंबल करो. आपको PLI दे दिया, सब बहुत सारा बेनिफिट दे दिया. सेकेंड क्या कर रहे हैं? ओके, तुम्हारा जो केसिंग है ना, उस पर टैक्स बढ़ा देते. धीरे 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 हायर वैल्यू के जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं ना, उस पर टैक्स बढ़ता है. सो वो धीरे धीरे इंडिया में बनने लगता है. सो अभी सेमीकंडक्टर की बात कर रहे हैं. शायद पहला सेमीकंडक्टर इंडिया में 8 से 7 साल बाद बनेगा, और उसमें भी अपना कोई IP नहीं होगा. हम तो सिर्फ 10 बिलियन डॉलर का प्लांट लगाएंगे, बट एटलीस्ट यू विल स्टार्ट. दैट्स हाउ एवरीवन स्टार्टेड, राइट? एक जो सेमीकंडक्टर, जो आपका चिप यूज होता है ना फ़ोन में, उसमें 4.5 लाख अलग प्रोसेस होते हैं जस्ट टू मेक दैट चिप. इट इज़ सो कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. इन केस यू आर इंटरेस्टेड इन फिजिक्स, दैट इज़ द काइंड ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी दैट इज़ देयर. वो जो 7nm चिप्स, 5nm चिप्स जो होते हैं, वो उतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होते हैं. तो नहीं बनना है अपने उधर, बट इट इज़ प्लांट तो इधर आ जाएगा. यू माइट नॉट डेवलप द टेक्नोलॉजी. सो दिस इज़ हाउ वी विल सॉर्ट ऑफ मूव अप. लास्टली, a lot of us are in our 40s and 50s. तो अपने को लगता है यंग जनरेशन इज नॉट डूइंग वेल, बट द फैक्ट इज एज अ कंट्री इंडिया इज क्रेजी आफ्टर एजुकेशन. तो व्हाट हैपेंस इज पेरेंट्स स्पेंड अ डिस्प्रपोर्शनेट अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम एंड मनी इन एजुकेशन. तो दैट्स व्हाई मैंने स्टार्टेड माई करियर, मैंने करियर TCS से स्टार्ट किया था. तभी मेरे को बोला गया था कि इन सॉफ्टवेयर आउटसोर्सिंग, ऑफशोरिंग, इंडिया का 65% मार्केट शेयर है. दिस इज 1999. आज भी 63% है. इंडस्ट्री तब से आज में शायद 50 गुना हो गया, ज़्यादा ही हो गया. आई वॉज 9,000 एम्प्लॉय, आज 6.5 लाख एम्प्लॉय है. तो उससे भी ज़्यादा हो गया इंडस्ट्री, राइट? बट व्हाट हैपेंस इज बिकॉज एजुकेशन इतना इंपॉर्टेंट है. आप कई दुनिया में कई 100 इंजीनियर रिक्रूट नहीं कर सकते. TCS हर हफ्ते 2000 इंजीनियर रिक्रूट करता है, राइट? सो दैट इज़ द काइंड ऑफ स्केल. सो दैट इज़ सॉर्ट ऑफ इंडियाज गोल्डन डिकेड, राइट? नाउ हम क्या करते हैं? हाउ विल वी सॉर्ट ऑफ बेनिफिट, राइट? सो एज आई सेड, हम फ्लेक्सी कैप टाइप फंड चलाते हैं, सिंपल स्टॉक मार्केट ऑपरेशंस. लेकिन अनलेस मोस्ट जो फंड्स चलते हैं ना, वी आर नॉट बाय एंड होल्ड, राइट? वी इन्वेस्ट थ्रू साइकिल्स, right? It's all there in the booklet. So what happens is every sector, every company, the whole market goes through cycles, right? So we try and take advantage of it. You want to go to that? Yeah. This is one place I need to use the slide. Keep going, keep going. Okay. By the time we come there. So that is what we do. Now what that has happened is कि either we are aggressive or defensive. When valuations are, let's say, reasonable, things are going reasonably all right. See, India कभी अच्छा नहीं करते. मतलब India disappoints both optimists and the pessimists. है ना? हम कभी 9% ग्रोथ नहीं करते, हम कभी 4% भी नहीं करते. 2013 में लोगों ने बहुत कुछ इंडिया राइट ऑफ कर दिया, ये वो किया, नथिंग हैपेंड. 2007 में लोगों ने लिखा था इंडिया भी 10-10% ग्रो करेगा, दैट ऑल्सो डिडंट हैपन. बट दैट इन अ वे इज गुड. उससे होता क्या है कि द इकोनॉमी गेट्स टाइम टू सॉर्ट ऑफ स्टेबिलाइज एट हायर एंड हायर लेवल्स. सो यू नो, सो अगेन कमिंग बैक, इफ यू वांट टू इन्वेस्ट हाउ शुड यू लुक. नेक्स्ट मतलब क्वेश्चन क्या, नेक्स्ट 10 साल में कितना पैसा बनेगा, राइट? इफ आई वाज द इन्वेस्टर, दैट वुड बी माई क्वेश्चन. सो द वे टू थिंक ऑफ इट इज, you know, 6-7% growth is possible. As I said, सारे building blocks in place है. So 7% real growth. Inflation देश में sticky है ही. I mean, I am not of the view कि 2% inflation हो जाएगा. Doesn't happen. In कोई developing economy में नहीं हुआ है, तो हमारे साथ भी नहीं होगा. तो वो 4% वो आप जोड़ लो. Generally, organized sector grows faster than the economy, right? Economy में तो सब कुछ है ना. Agriculture है, साड़ी बनती है, वो भी है. Which is a degrowing business. So 13% possible. बाकी फिर हमारे पे, right? Hopefully we achieve some alpha. So that's how we sort of think. So 12-13% possible. And जो रुपी depreciate हो रहा है 2-2.5% versus the dollar, I think that should go on. So 10-11% dollar returns are very good for most investors in the world, right? So FI flows should keep coming. Okay. What else? Yeah. Keep going. So that's where we are. In terms of our market, the alternatives management, PMS industry, 20 लाख करोड़ का इंडस्ट्री है, right? In theory. In theory. उसमें से 16 लाख करोड़ प्रोविडेंट फंड का है. So provident fund somehow gets counted as PMS. But industry is 4 lakhs. Roughly doubling every maybe 3 odd years. Good thing. See, इसका बहुत अच्छा डेटा नहीं है अनफॉर्चुनेटली. हमारा भी एक एसोसिएशन है एपमी, लाइक एमफी हमारा भी एक एपमी है. उतना अच्छा डेटा नहीं है, बट गिव और टेक आज तक सिर्फ 1.25 लाख फैमिली ने पीएमएस में इन्वेस्ट किया है. दैट्स इट. कुछ 4-5 लाख अकाउंट है, बाकी 1.25 लाख. तो ऐसे मेरे को बहुत जन पूछते तुम करते क्या, तो म्यूचुअल फंड विथ 3 zeros ऑन द राइट. मोटा मोटा हम वो करते हैं, राइट? ये है. बाकी ऑल दिस इज देयर. वेल, कम टू द लास्ट वन. कीप गोइंग. ये सब मैं बोल चुका हूँ, आईटी वगैरह. सो good. So yeah, this it's all there, but I will just say कि reason हमारा जो अल्फा है लास्ट 7 साल का रादर is around 8% in normal index. Total return में देखेंगे तो लगभग 7% है. A lot of our successes come because of this. First, getting the sort of market call right, कि महंगा है, सस्ता है, where do you want to. Then getting the sector calls right. See, think of it this way, right? Capital goods in that golden period went up by some 20 times, engineering companies. 2003 से 2007 तक the index went up by 20 times, 2000%. नेक्स्ट 14 साल कुछ नहीं, वो भाव आया ही नहीं 2021 तक, बीच में बहुत कुछ आ गया, राइट? सो बहुत बार जो इन्वेस्टमेंट थीसिस होता है कि लोग अच्छी कंपनी ढूंढते हैं. वी थिंक इट डजंट वर्क दैट वे. अ बैड कंपनी इन अ गुड सेक्टर, राइट, will make you more money than a good company in a bad sector. You know? So there is enough data, but somehow this doesn't follow. get followed. So that is one. Second, we try and, I mean, there are lots of examples on companies too. It's there on the sort of slide. कि लीवर में 12 साल पैसा नहीं बना, कोलगेट में 14 साल पैसा नहीं बना. I think slide 8 or 10 it's there. So that is what we try and avoid. Somehow, ये देखो, मतलब, you know, even if you go to our website, the first line you will see is, a good company need not be a great investment. Great investment is very different from a good company. So all these are great companies, 10 साल पैसा नहीं बना. So that is again something what we try and avoid. Yeah, that's about it. That's what we do. In case you are interested to talk more on whatever markets go and we are around. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Viral. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's move ahead with the session for today. I would now like to call upon stage Mr. Arun Malhotra from Cap Grow Capital on stage. एक बार जरा जोरदार तालियों के साथ स्वागत करते हैं Mr. Arun Malhotra. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, presenting Mr. Arun Malhotra on stage.
Yeah, good evening first of all. Thank you everybody for coming here. The topic which I have been given is about the noise in the market, the distortions in the market. You know, I would come to later stage what we exactly do and how we filter out these noises in the market and have developed an investment strategy that helps generate returns. This is a picture we thought probably captures the uncertainty in the minds of the investors. And we all would have felt overwhelmed by the constant stream of information that keeps getting bombarded on us, whether it is WhatsApp, whether it is CNBC. And trust me, ये जो noises हैं, ये जो आवाज़ आती है, these actually confuse the minds. And they are actually a contradiction to जो हमारी efficient market hypothesis है कि सारी information market के price के अंदर है, but फिर भी जो WhatsApp पे message आता है या CNBC पे कुछ rumor या कुछ आता है, उससे price distortions होते हैं. What is noise in the market? I just tried to look upon, और Google में जो मुझे definition मिली वो ये मिली कि it confuses the mind. This is very important, and it deceives the genuine underlying trends. जो actual trends हैं, noise उससे हटके होती है हमेशा, और एक normal investment decision making को confuse करती है. And I have umpteen examples in my more than 30 years of experience. So information overload है, you know, at least I have known investors जिनके 10-10 stock investment groups होते हैं, जिसमें एक में कह रहे हैं buy, दूसरे में कह रहे हैं sell. तो उनको नहीं पता buy करना है, sell करना है. And rumors हैं, herd mentality है. You know, there are a lot of biases which come into our mind. And most of us, most of the retail investors especially, they react impulsively. अभी आया, अभी खरीदेंगे, और मेरी ये ऑब्जर्वेशन है, एंड आई थिंक सेबी हैज़ ऑल्सो कम आउट विद गाइडलाइंस, कि जब कोई CNBC में स्टॉक आता है विद इन नेक्स्ट 5 मिनट स्टॉक प्राइस ऊपर चले जाता है, लोग खरीदते हैं, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे आया, हर्ड मेंटेलिटी, दिस इज व्हाट, एंड ऑल दिस all this chaos, I would call it, leads to financial losses and loss of credibility. ये human mind है हमारा, there are so many distractions that impact our decision making. Confirmation bias, कुछ खरीदा हुआ है, किसी और ने बोला, लगता है कंफर्म हो गया हमारा आइडिया, जबकि रिसर्च ना उसने करी है ना आपने करी है. अवेलेबिलिटी बायस, जो इन्फॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल होगी उसी पे एक्ट कर लेंगे, जो व्हाट्सएप पे आया उसी पे एक्ट किया, उस सेक्टर में कौन सा स्टॉक बढ़िया है, कौन सी मैनेजमेंट अच्छी है, नोबडी बॉदर्स टू केयर. हर्ड मेंटेलिटी, एंकरिंग बायस, किसी और ने खरीदा, दोस्त ने खरीदा, हम भी ले लेंगे, पैसा बनेगा. उसने, अच्छा एक और चीज, उसने जो पहले वाला बताया था दैट वेंट 10x, सो दिस टाइम ही इज टेलिंग आई हैव टू बाय इट. सो दीज आर ऑल बायसेस, डिस्टॉर्शंस, लॉस एवर्जन. एंड आई वुड यहाँ पर मैं थोड़ा कहना चाहूँगा, बहुत सारे इन्वेस्टर्स ऐसा सोचते हैं कि अगर मैंने स्टॉक खरीदा और अगर बेचा नहीं है तो मेरा लॉस नहीं हुआ है. दिस इज नॉट ट्रू. सो लॉस हो चुका है, मार्क टू मार्केट हो चुका है. दिस इज जस्ट अ बायस इन द माइंड. एंड व्हाट इज द रेमेडी? ऑल दिस, ये सब, वी कॉल इट इन मैथमेटिकल टर्म्स सब ऑप्टिमल डिसीजन मेकिंग. एंड व्हाट इज द रेमेडी? क्या इसका सोल्यूशन क्या है? क्या व्हाट्सएप मैसेजेस बंद कर दें? क्या CNBC देखना बंद कर दें? दिस रेमेडी इज स्ट्रॉन्ग रिसर्च प्रोसेसेस, फिल्टर द इंफॉर्मेशन. और ये जो बिहेवियरल बायसेस हैं जो हम सबके हैं, किसी के थोड़े हैं किसी के ज़्यादा हैं, जो इमोशनली हम कई बार डिसीजन ले लेते हैं, वी हैव टू रेस्ट्रिक्ट. वी बेसिकली हैव टू बेस अवर इन्वेस्टमेंट डिसीजंस ऑन research, analysis, facts, figures. Discipline, patient and in-depth analysis, all three work together. कई बार क्या होता है, कोई न्यूज़ आई, कंपनी का 10, 12, 15, 20% स्टॉक प्राइस नीचे आ गया. कैन वी एवर इमेजिन कि एक कंपनी का बिजनेस 20% एक दिन में, एक घंटे में चेंज हो सकता है? वैल्यू, प्राइस चेंज हुआ है, आई एग्री, मार्केट वैल्यू हैज चेंज. देयर वाज sell report on a big short selling report by one of the US investors on one of the Indian large groups. The stock prices went down by more than 50%. या तो पहले वाला प्राइस गलत था, या जो 50% प्राइस नीचे आ गया. 50% एक बिजनेस की वैल्यू जो 20 साल में उन्होंने जनरेट करी है. True, right, I am not going to get into all that. I am just trying to give you an example. Similarly, कोविड में चीज़ें 60% डाउन आ गई थी. क्या कोविड एक ऐसा इन्फेक्शन, कोई ऐसा आएगा जो किसी एंटरप्रेन्योर ने 60 साल में बिजनेस बनाया है या वैल्यू क्रिएट करी है, वो 60% डाउन आ जाएगी? इज दैट अ थ्रेट? इज दैट अ फियर? और इज दैट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी? दैट इज फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस टू डिसाइड, एंड हेंस वी हैव टू फिल्टर ऑल दिस नॉइज एंड डिसाइड. एंड दिस इज व्हाट फिल्ट्रेशन टेक्निक, व्हाट वी यूज एट कैपग्रो. व्हाट वी डू इज वी वुड अप्लाई फिल्टर्स. जो कंपनी, अगर सचिन तेंदुलकर है, उसका ये ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड है, ये कंसिस्टेंसी है, उसने इतने सालों में ROE बनाई है, उसकी मैनेजमेंट अच्छी है, रोस अच्छी है, पूरा टैक्स पे करता है, तो आगे चल के भी देयर इज अ वेरी हाई प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट द कंपनी विल डेफिनेटली डू वेल. And we keep also evaluating external factors. So from maybe 1,000 companies, we come to 500, applying filters, 300, 200, and finally 50 set of companies which we think are investable. What we do at Capcro is very unique, very differentiated. There are very few players in the market do it. And that is special situation investing. स्पेशल सिचुएशन इन्वेस्टिंग से हम क्या करते हैं, जो मार्केट में नॉइज़ है, जो मैंने बोला नॉइज़ जो डिस्टॉर्ट करती है हमारे डिसीजन मेकिंग को, उसको वो हटा के इट हेल्प्स इन क्लैरिटी कि ये कंपनी क्या करती है, हमारा रिटर्न कैसे बनेगा, क्या रोड मैप होगा, और उस रोड मैप पे ये नहीं कि 5 साल में ये कंपनी यहाँ हो जाएगी, उस 5 साल में क्या माइलस्टोन्स होंगे, आपको सी लॉन्ग टर्म इज बेसिकली एन एग्रीगेट ऑफ स्मॉल स्मॉल स्टेप्स। 5 साल में कंपनी 20 टाइम हो जाएगी, अरे भाई 6 महीने में क्या करेगी, 2 साल में क्या माइलस्टोन्स होंगे, वो सब हमें मॉनिटर करने हैं। सो वी क्रिएट अ कंप्लीट रोड मैप ऑफ हाउ द कंपनी विल डू every 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then it can only be a multi-bagger. So special situation investment involves, I would try to read it slowly, specific structural, I underline this word, structural, non-operational, again underline this word, non-operational event that affects the value of the firm or securities. ये कंपनी की लाइफ में एक ऐसा इवेंट है, जैसे हमारे सब में 12th होता है, ग्रेजुएशन होता है, देन मैरिज होती है, या समथिंग होता है, ये एक ऐसा इवेंट है दैट विल ट्रांसफॉर्म द कंपनी। या तो कंपनी की बैलेंस शीट चेंज करेगा, उसका अर्निंग प्रोफाइल चेंज करेगा, बट वहां से इन्फ्लेक्शन पॉइंट आके वो कंपनी का, दिस इज जैसे रिंकू सिंह ने 5 छक्के मारे लास्ट 5 बॉलों पर, उसका करियर चेंज हो गया। ये एक वैसा इवेंट कंपनी की लाइफ में है जिसको हम एनालाइज करते हैं और जिसको हम स्पेशल सिचुएशन इन्वेस्टिंग कहते हैं। ये रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग हो सकती है, ये मर्जर हो सकता है, ये डीमर्जर हो सकता है, ये बायबैक हो सकता है, ये टेक ओवर हो सकता है, ये डीलिस्टिंग हो सकती है, बट हमारा रिटर्न इन चीजों से बनता है। सो एज आई सेड, आईपीओ, ब्रोकन आईपीओज, ये ब्रोकन आईपीओज एक वर्ड है। एक आईपीओ आया, वो नो फूड प्लेटफॉर्म का आया, वो ऊपर गया, विद इन 1 ईयर 1/3 हो गया। डज दैट मेरिट अटेंशन? हमारी इस स्ट्रेटजी के हिसाब से व्हेन इट बिकम्स 1/3 इट मेरिट्स अटेंशन। मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि आप इन्वेस्टमेंट करिए, आंख मीचिए, प्राइस 1/3 हो गया, आप जाके ले लीजिए। यहां पर वैल्यू है। आप ऐसे 5 चीजें हैं, उसको इन्वेस्ट करिए। टाइम लग सकता है, कोई रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग है, कोई डेट के थ्रू रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग जा रहा है। आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जाम्पल फ्रॉम वन ऑफ आवर पोर्टफोलियोज। जब हमने खरीदा, वो कंपनी डेट पे डिफॉल्ट कर रही थी, उसकी ग्रुप कंपनी, एंड दैट स्टॉक इज 8x इन द लास्ट 3 years, एंड इट्स वन ऑफ द टॉप कंपनीज। नो सर, यूरेका फोर्ब्स। सो वेरी निश, डिफरेंशिएटेड स्ट्रेटेजी, वेरी ल्यूक्रेटिव एंड प्रिडिक्टेबल। प्रिडिक्टेबल क्यों कहा मैंने? हम कई बार पोर्टफोलियो में से एक कंपनी खरीदी हमने 68-69 रुपीज़ पे, 4 महीने में वो 85 रुपीज़ पे मेरा बायबैक है। ये आप इसको इक्विटी रिटर्न्स इन अ डेट काइंड ऑफ एन इंस्ट्रूमेंट कह सकते हैं, और मुझे मेरा एब्जॉर्प्शन रेशियो भी पता है। तो अब इसमें भी पैसा मैं नहीं लगाऊंगा तो किस चीज़ में लगाऊंगा? और इस टाइप की इन्वेस्टिंग स्पेशल सिचुएशन इन्वेस्टिंग एक्चुअली यूएस में 1/3 ऑफ द मार्केट है, ट्रिलियंस में, बट हमारे इंडिया में ये मार्केट अभी बहुत ही नेसेंट स्टेज पे है, एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती है, और इसमें रिस्क है ही नहीं। अब आप बताओ, अगर कंपनी ने खुद बायबैक दे रखा है तो उस स्ट्रेटेजी में रिस्क क्या है? देयर इज नो रिस्क एट ऑल। सो एंड अनदर पॉइंट इज, जो रिटर्न्स है वो कंपनी के ऑपरेशंस पे नहीं डिपेंड करते। मेरे को ये गैस नहीं करना कि ये रॉ मटेरियल का प्राइस केमिकल का कहाँ होगा, या डिमांड होगी कि नहीं होगी, या उसका जो शिप है वो डिले हो जाएगा और नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर में अर्निंग आएगी। मुझे सिर्फ उस इवेंट पे फोकस करना है। सो आई एम नॉट गेसिंग दी सो मेनी वेरिएबल्स, द डिमांड, ग्लोबल डिमांड, कहीं चाइना में प्लांट आ गया एकदम प्राइस नीचे आ गया। सो अभी लास्ट मंथ there was a chemical we were discussing, price was 6 months when the company started the plant was $77 and it is $9. Do you think when the company could not predict, an analyst like me or us team can predict it? So it is different from a fundamental investing strategy where we just focus on the event. सो 2 ड्राइवर हैं इस परफॉर्मेंस के। एक है कॉर्पोरेट इवेंट, जो मैंने आपको बताया, कंपनी की अनाउंसमेंट आएगी जिस पे हमें एक्ट करना है, एनालाइज करना है, और उसके बाद बफेटोलॉजी। व्हाई वी से बफेटोलॉजी? कि कंपनी में कई बार मैनेजमेंट्स, एज वी नो हाउ मैनेजमेंट्स आर स्पेशली इन इंडिया, वी ऑल्सो अप्लाई अ फंडामेंटल चेक. तो फर्स्ट लेयर हो गई इवेंट, सेकेंड फंडामेंटल चेक हो गया कि कहीं कोई मैनेजमेंट इज नॉट प्लेइंग एनी हैंकी पेंकी विद द इन्वेस्टर्स. सो वी विल अप्लाई अवर फंडामेंटल सैनिटी चेक टू मेक श्योर कि वी आर ऑन द राइट साइड. दिस रिटर्न्स फ्रॉम दिस स्ट्रेटजी किसी और से कोरिलेट नहीं करते हैं, उनको मार्केट से कोई मतलब नहीं है. शॉर्ट टर्म हो सकता है, कहीं बॉम्ब गिर गया तो उस दिन 10%, बट क्योंकि मेरा इवेंट है, क्योंकि बायबैक है, वो स्टॉक ऊपर जाएगा अपने प्राइस पे. हाँ, अगर मार्केट 50% ऊपर गई, बट वो स्टॉक वहीं पे रहेगा जो उसकी प्रेडिक्टेबल रिटर्न थी. तो ये अनकोरिलेटेड रिटर्न है, इसमें अनकोरिलेटेड अदर पोर्टफोलियोज के साथ है, कोई बहुत ही कम कोरिलेशन है. What is the risk? You know, everybody says equity market है, कुछ तो रिस्क होगा, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है, रिस्क ना हो, प्रेडिक्टेबल है, लो रिस्क है, रिटर्न भी अच्छे हैं, we will share the returns. रिस्क इज द टाइमलाइन. मैंने सोचा था 6 महीने में ही आएगा, ये आया 1 साल में. तो जो आपकी IRR है वो आपकी चेंज हो गई. दैट्स द ओनली थिंग. So these are some of the important characteristics of special situation. One time impact है, one time transformational event है, जिससे कंपनी का अर्निंग्स पूरा चेंज हो जाता है, कंपनीज की पूरी पिक्चर चेंज हो जाती है. और they are very high conviction because we know what is going to happen. And lot of times churn in promoters, change in the capital structure, balance sheet में कुछ हुआ, that creates humongous returns. बहुत रिटर्न्स बनते हैं, बट लोग उसको आइडेंटिफाई नहीं करते. अगर आप उसको 5 साल 10 साल पूरा राइड करें कंपनी के साथ, द रिटर्न्स कैन बी ह्यूमंगस. जैसा मैंने बताया, रिस्क इज द रेगुलेटरी अप्रूवल एंड टाइमलाइन. बहुत सारे लोग दे क्वेश्चन अस कि क्या ये अपॉर्चुनिटीज स्केलेबल हैं, क्या ये आपको साल में मिलती हैं. वी हैव एनफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड ट्रस्ट मी, in the last 5 years we have been running this PMS, close to 5 years, we have always been short of capital. हमें लगता है अपॉर्चुनिटीज ज़्यादा हैं, हमारे पास कैपिटल कम है. और वो कैपिटल कम इसलिए क्योंकि हमने लगा दिया, जब तक वो इवेंट नहीं होगा तब तक हम उसको बेचेंगे नहीं. अब कोई और इवेंट आ गया तो आप बताएं क्या करें. सो वी नीड मोर कैपिटल. जो मैंने लास्ट पॉइंट बताया कि कोरिलेशन बहुत कम है इसका, और इसमें हम 2 तरह के मार्केट में रिस्क होते हैं, एक सिस्टमैटिक और अनसिस्टमैटिक. अनसिस्टमैटिक रिस्क आप लोग डाइवर्सिफिकेशन से कर लेते हैं, वो हम भी 15-17 स्टॉक लेंगे, डाइवर्सिफाई हो गया पोर्टफोलियो. बट जो सिस्टमैटिक रिस्क है कि वो रशिया ने कहीं वो बॉम्ब गिरा दिया या यूएस की इंटरेस्ट रेट ऊपर चली गई, मैं सच बताऊं तो फेड के गवर्नर को भी आइडिया नहीं है कहाँ जाएगी, गोल्डमैन सैक्स को भी नहीं है. वो करते रहते हैं, 25 पैसे इधर उधर हो जाता है तो वो सोचते हैं कभी ठीक है कभी गलत है. सो दिस स्ट्रैटेजी में आपको ये सब सोचने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, बिकॉज देर इज अ इवेंट विच इज स्पेसिफिक टू द कंपनी. कुछ भी बाहर हो रहा है, इट विल नॉट अल्टर योर रिटर्न्स सिग्निफिकेंटली. सो क्योंकि ये रिसर्च थॉट प्रोसेस ऐसा है, इसमें हम सारी नॉइज बाहर की जितनी भी हैं वो सब फिल्टर आउट करके we are just trying to build the portfolio which is uncorrelated. तो इस प्रोसेस से जो स्टॉक्स निकल के आते हैं वो भी completely different हैं. अगर सपोज करिए आपके पास म्यूचुअल फंड पोर्टफोलियो है किसी क्लाइंट के पास, उसके अगर आप टॉप लार्ज कैप लें या मिड कैप लें, तो जो टॉप देयर विल बी अ 60% ओवरलैप. सबके पास HDFC होगा, सबके पास इन्फोसिस होगा, सबके पास HDFC बैंक होगा. तो होता क्या है, जब मार्केट गिरी या इन्फोसिस आया तो सारे पोर्टफोलियोज इक्वली इम्पैक्ट होते हैं. ये पोर्टफोलियो ऐसा है जो अनकोरिलेटेड है, जो म्यूचुअल फंड या बाकी PMS वालों से भी डिफरेंशियल है, डिफरेंट है, और इसके स्टॉक्स भी डिफरेंट होंगे. सॉरी, एक्टिव माइन एक्टिव शेयर. एक्टिव शेयर, कैन यू, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय? Yes.
That's not an index heavy. So active share is how much of your portfolio is actually different from the.
So I will show you just in terms when I talk to about the returns, I will show you. Stocks तो वही होंगे जो मार्केट में हैं, but आपको मैं एक बार अभी दिखाता हूँ टॉप 5 होल्डिंग्स, और उसमें एक एग्जांपल भी दूंगा जो आज का ही है. दिस इज अगेन प्रिडिक्टेबल, अनकोरिलेटेड, वन टाइम, स्केलेबल, लोअर रिस्क स्ट्रैटेजी. फिल्ट्रेशन प्रोसेस हमारा कैसा है बेसिकली, so that we can filter the noise. I think most of it I have covered. These are our top 5 holdings. Sorry sir, if I am blocking you. Escorts, Z, Netco Pharma, Piramal Enterprises, Tata Motors. टाटा मोटर्स मैंने तब खरीदा था जब कंपनी का 7,500 करोड़ का लॉस आया था. आज की मार्केट फ्लैट थी, बहुत सारी ब्रेथ नेगेटिव थी अगर आपने देखा होगा. पिरामल इंटरप्राइजेज वाज अप 13%, टोटली अनकोरिलेटेड विद द मार्केट एज आई एम सेइंग, क्योंकि उसमें इवेंट था जो आज हुआ, जो सबके व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में आया होगा कि उन्होंने अपना श्रीराम फाइनेंस का स्टेक बेचा. वो बेचना ही था, मेरे को नहीं पता था, ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं इनसाइडर हूं, वो तो उनकी प्रेजेंटेशन में दिया है, उनके एनालिस्ट कॉल में दिया है. तो इसमें फर्क क्या है, सिर्फ उसका मार्केट इंपैक्ट क्या होगा वो सोचने वाली बात है, उसका क्या इंपैक्ट होगा. तो आज सारे पोर्टफोलियोज मैक्सिमम डाउन होंगे, हमारा पोर्टफोलियो शुड बी अप एंड वी हैव अ सिग्निफिकेंट पोजीशन देयर. So there is only, so we look for multiple events, sir. This was one event. Yeah.
What is the special situation in Tata Motors?
Sir, when we bought it, as I said, the day we bought it, we have sold some, but still EV में you will see, our prediction is we will see here. And they have already created a separate EV where they have raised money. Netco में there is a very beautiful special situation. So these are our returns, sir, you were asking. So if you see since inception, I think if you ask me, am I happy with these returns? The answer is नहीं. हमें इससे ज़्यादा करना चाहिए था. इसमें एक दो पोजीशन जो अभी भी हम होल्ड करते हैं, जिसमें मुझे पूरा कॉन्फिडेंस है अभी भी, वो इवेंट प्ले आउट नहीं हुए हैं. बट अगर आप देखें तो सिंस इंसेप्शन 3 ईयर, 2 ईयर, 1 ईयर, द अल्फा इज डिसेंट एनफ. आई वुड नॉट से क्या ज़्यादा है क्या कम है, बट जो हम रिस्क ले रहे हैं वो बहुत लिमिटेड रिस्क ले रहे हैं ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द इन्वेस्टर्स. और उसके बाद हम ये स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन के साथ वी आर जनरेटिंग दीज रिटर्न्स. आई वॉन्ट टू ऐड हेयर कि यहाँ पे पूरे पोर्टफोलियो में माई इंटरेस्ट आर अलाइंड विद द पोर्टफोलियो एंड क्लोज टू 10% of the portfolio is my money. सर स्पेकुलेशन हम नहीं करते हैं, ये मान के चलिए. सीधा 4,500 करोड़ की जो डेड इन्वेस्टमेंट थी पिरामल की बुक्स में, वो 4,500 करोड़ की हटके 4,500 कैश आ गया. 4,500 करोड़ पे अगर मैं 15% भी ROE बनाऊं तो 700 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट इंक्रीज हो गया. इसको मैं लेवरेज करूंगा 3x, तो मैं 15,000 करोड़ की बुक्स लेंडिंग कर सकता हूं. छोटा, जस्ट इन वन सेंटेंस. जो मार्केट को पता था, बट मार्केट क्या करती है, जब तक होता नहीं है तब तक रियलाइज नहीं करती है. एंड मार्केट इज वेरी शॉर्ट टर्म फोकस्ड. कल क्या होगा, ये कब आएगा, अरे 3 महीने से तो आ नहीं रहा. नहीं, वही नॉइज है. जैसा मैंने स्टार्ट किया था, हम कहते हैं नहीं, हमारा पॉइंट टू पॉइंट 1 साल है. 1 साल में होगा, हाँ होगा. 1 साल में 30% रिटर्न बनेंगे, हाँ बनेंगे. नहीं, कब बनेंगे ये बता, किस महीने बनेंगे. आई डोंट नॉट हैव द आंसर सर. कब होगा, क्या होगा. आप सोचो, अगर मैं कब चंडीगढ़ जब फ्लाइट यहाँ जब कल आया, मुझे नहीं पता था कि आज श्री राम का स्टेक हो रहा है, सेल हो रहा है. लास्ट वीक ये दूसरे PE इन्वेस्टर ने बेचा है. सो वी नेवर थॉट कि एक दिन जल्दी हो जाएगा. द मार्केट विल अब्सॉर्ब सो मच लिक्विडिटी फॉर श्री राम. सो टाइमिंग इज अनसर्टेन, बट द वैल्यूज, पॉइंट टू पॉइंट वैल्यूज आर वेरी सर्टेन. These are month returns. I think investment philosophy well documented है, small steps है. We do with lot of conviction. Market price नीचे आ जाए किसी चीज का और हमारा इवेंट नहीं प्ले हुआ, we will not sell it. कोई stop loss नहीं है, rather we will buy it more. And that reflects the strong conviction we have in our ideas. So our mantra is actually, even though this topic, before this topic is avoid the noise in the markets and just focus on the fundamentals. The returns will follow. हम returns chase नहीं करते, returns तो अपने आप बन जाते हैं. हमें सिर्फ ये फोकस करना था श्रीराम का स्टेक बिकेगा नहीं बिकेगा. रिटर्न्स तो अपने आप आएंगे. हमें थोड़ी पता था 13% बढ़ जाएगा, हो सकता है 3% बढ़ता. बट देर इज ट्रिमेंडस वैल्यू, देर इज अ बिग गैप बिटवीन वैल्यू और जो करंट प्राइस है. इसकी वैल्यू इतनी होनी चाहिए, इसका प्राइस इतना है, बहुत गैप है. तो कुछ तो फिल होगा ना. और मैनेजमेंट के लिए कुछ ना कुछ कैटलिस्ट होना चाहिए. अगर किसी ने साइंस अगर हमारे यहाँ याद हो तो कैटलिस्ट एक ऐसी चीज होती है जो रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन को बढ़ा देती है. वो हम कैटलिस्ट देखते हैं कि क्या चीज हमारी रिटर्न को बढ़ाएगी, किसमें जल्दी होगा ताकि मेरी आईआरआर बढ़ सके. सो इज द मैनेजमेंट टेकिंग एनफ एफर्ट्स? बायबैक इज अ वन वे. Total at CapGrow level is 165 plus something. 165 crores. So sustainability, resilience, we look for management integrity, I think corporate governance, and we make sure that second layer, which I said is the buffetology layer, we stick to that. Lot of companies ने कुछ plants बेचे, पैसा आया, but shareholder minority को नहीं दिया. And we will not invest in such companies. बहुत सारी कंपनीज हम कहते हैं स्ट्रक्चरल स्टैटिस्टिकल इम्परफेक्शंस. अभी हमने एक कंपनी खरीदी जहाँ पे कंपनी की बुक्स पे कैश उसकी मार्केट कैप से ज़्यादा है और बिजनेस भी है. सो वी कॉल देम एज स्टैटिस्टिकल इम्परफेक्शन. वी आर गिवन दैट वर्ड वेयर द रिटर्न्स इवेंचुअली विल कम. 2 साल में आए, बट 2 साल में 50% आ जाएगा और वो रिटर्न 1 महीने में ही आता है. Moat, these rest of the things you are all aware. Just process custodian Kotak, financial accounting is Kotak Mahindra Bank. Risk management, as you would say, we don't invest in small caps unless management हमें liquidity देगी. अगर management ही मेरा stock buyback कर लेगी तो मुझे कोई चिंता नहीं है liquidity की, फिर मैं market में खेल सकता हूँ. Transparency, we have one philosophy, HIT, we call it honesty, integrity, transparency. This we expect, honesty भी, integrity भी और transparency भी. जिस companies में invest करते हैं, जिस vendors के साथ deal करते हैं, this is our philosophy. We will not compromise on any one of our principles. And this has helped us, come here. This is a disclaimer in terms of the returns, which is, SEBI ने कहा है TWRR, so we are also following everything. Thank you. I hope I did not take too much of time. Thank you, sir, and thank you everybody. You guys coming on a evening. Really appreciate all of you coming in. Thank you.
Many thanks to Mr. Arun Malhotra. So ladies and gentlemen, we now begin with the Q&A session. In another 5 minutes, after the entire technical setting is done, we'll be beginning up with the Q&A session. So please do not go anywhere. Please be seated. Another 5 minutes and we resume today's session. So Q&A session lekar hum aa rahe hain bahut hi jald. Another 5 minutes and we'll see you all. Thank you.
Check, check, check. Check. Harbirji, can I request you to come on the stage, please? All the speakers, may I please request you to come on the stage? कोई बात नहीं. Mr. Malhotra, can I please have you on the dais? And there's a request, we'll be having a Q&A section here, and whomsoever wants to ask the question, please raise your hand, stand up, take the mic and then talk. Thoda sa, we will require it technically. Please do stand up, take the mic and then ask your question.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for your insights on various aspects of the markets, of the products and the ideas that are brimming through the PMS and alternate investment space. It's one of the most exciting spaces, I believe, and my personal view is that I probably should have entered this space much earlier rather than spending this much time in mutual funds. But that's my personal view again. The audience, I would request you to start with your questions, if any, and raise your hand in case you have any questions. Kapil sir, good evening and welcome, and thank you so much for traveling all the way from Amritsar just for this event this evening.
This question is for Mr. Malik. Since you play in the AI sector of the credit opportunities fund, in the credit space, and if we are playing in the equity market and we see a red flag in the equity market, there is ample or else reasonable liquidity in the equity market. Say you see a red flag in the credit cycle of your company. How you liquidate your holding and what covents, what do you play with the covents or do you find a buyer, because debt market is a very shallow market in India. Even AAA or AA or A paper rated, there are very few buyers and every deal is on the phone. It is only reported in the exchange. Then how you mitigate this risk? It is a very specific question, nothing sort of it.
No, sure. Good that you sort of raised this point. It is, see, both have a very different lens, right? Equity investing, fixed income investing. And let me answer it in a manner that, you had once in a lifetime pandemic hit you, right? So you had COVID, right? Despite that, you didn't really have entities, and then the government stepped in to sort of provide all those guarantees. But you didn't really see even a single company go belly up because of the event, right? There could be an entity because of historically not doing what they were supposed to do. That's another matter. But purely because of the event, entity didn't really go belly up. But what happened for the same entity, for example, your equity, because one, your profits were gone, right? Growth was gone for say a year or so. So the multiple that you give to a company from an equity viewpoint needs to be revisited, right? However, for an entity, the good part or the bad part of COVID was that it got spread over 3 financial years, right? See, COVID hit, the first lockdown happened in March 2020, right? By then, companies were sort of really closing the year and finalizing their books. You did anticipatory provisions in FY20, right? And then COVID hit, the wave 2 happened from April 21. And then there was an actual hit in FY22. 21, sorry. And then you had the wave 3 which happened subsequently. So the impact of this was across 3 financial years. So whatever, your credit cost going up was largely taken out from the profits. So the net worth was yet intact. So for a debt investor, your lens is different. As long as your net worth is intact, right? There is, it didn't really lead to an entity really going, or a solvency related issue happening. Right? But the fact was, if the profits for 3 years are gone, then the sort of multiple gets revisited. So what you need to do here is, see, if you see a red flag as a fixed income guy, तो हमारा पहला क्या option है कि, how do I get out of this, right? There are multiple covenants, right? And this is why in fixed income, your agreements needs to be so watertight. It gives you enough and more ways to get out the moment you see a red flag. Some standard sort of covenants that we built into our term sheets, could be your standard, say financial covenants like कि अगर NBFC को lend किया तो उसका NPA किस level पे, par 30, par 60, par 90, what are the acceptable numbers, right? The moment there is, so supposing if an entity, I am fine if this entity reports a par 60 at 3%, right? The moment वो 3.5 हुआ है या 4 हुआ है, that doesn't mean that the entity is really going, sort of defaulting tomorrow. But the fact that there is a breach, it allows me to accelerate my exit. So there could be instances कि अब अगर उसकी situation खराब हो रही है तो मैं exit, उसके पास cash भी नहीं होगा to pay me. So what we do is, because of these sort of agreements being such, you do a restructuring with that company, in the sense that you will, so for an NBFC, you will throttle disbursements, right? कि अगर वो 100 crore का disbursements monthly कर रहा है, you have to bring it down to say 80, to be able to then, ये वाला जो मेरा facility है, needs to get paid back, instead of happening over next 1 year, it needs to be paid over the next 6 months or 3 months. I'm just giving you a basic kind of an example, but that is what happens, and that is how we essentially make sure that we get out of it without an impact. You're right, and that's the reason why we believe the liquidity to hai nahi market mein, right? So agar main usko bechne jaunga, there is no buyer, right? So that is a huge impact cost. So we don't even build that in. So we are saying is, This needs to be on the close-ended format where you are monitoring, tracking, and then taking those corrective actions the moment you see a red flag. See, after itna assessment karne ke baad, performing entity doesn't become bust overnight, right? It starts off with some issue, with some branch, some location. If that is not addressed early on, that can then lead to solvency-related issues. So that is why this monitoring, we are able to identify those gaps. And the fact is, say if I'm lending to an NBFC, and the NBFC, I'm seeing, there's an issue from a collection point of view, and he tells me people in a particular geography are not paying on time. Because I work with 70% of the sector, I know how are the others reporting that geography. If everyone comes and tells me that, I have an issue with people in a particular place not paying on time, and everyone's telling me, I know it's a geography-specific problem. If only you come and tell me, so I know it's a branch-specific problem with you. So those kind of insights also sort of give me the ability to kind of really arrive at a solution to get out of this situation. Long answer again.
I'll ask two people, then if nobody else asks, then I'll ask more questions. Okay. So first to Deepak ji only. What is the allocation you do to one? Normally in mutual fund there is a sector limit and like party specific. Do you keep certain things to just mitigate risk, like particular sector you allocate this much and to a particular company you?
Yes, we do. And specific to Northern Arc, we are very mutual fund-ish in that sense. Unlike AIF generally, what you see across the board, and I'm talking more fixed income, is large checks, right? Chunky allocations. So, 150-200 crore tickets lending to an entity. See, there are SEBI guidelines. In a category 2, you have 25% limit to a particular entity. There are no sectoral limits. Entity level 25% limit. We don't breach any, we don't even, so on an average, we believe diversification in fixed income is a risk mitigant. Unlike equity, where if you are too spread out, then the alpha doesn't come, even if the stock is on circuit, right? So while here, how do I, so if I have a sort of amortizing strategy, कि monthly मेरे को EMI आ रहा है कंपनी से, मैंने उसको lend किया है, वो हर महीने मेरे को EMI दे रहा है, right? उसमें interest भी आ रहा है, principal भी आ रहा है. So my principal at risk keeps going down every month with him, right? So those are ways and means by which. So that is specific to us. I mean, that's how we do it. So our average exposure ranges anywhere between 3 to 5% to an entity.
Good. So next question to sir only, Arun sir. Sir, are there that ample opportunities in special situations? Because, for example, buybacks. So buybacks, unless you hedge it by future, for example, Wipro or this, it's a recent, or a JSW Steel special situation, mergers, then also you need to hedge it somewhere in the F&O to make any decent O. In this case, what you are doing is, whatever examples you told me, it can take a lot of time to actually the things to get realized. For example, Piramal happened, but it could have been delayed by like 1 year or 2 years. So you don't know when the things will come, unless, though they have been expressing in their documents on these financials, you will do that, but the timeline is not there in most of the cases.
Sure, I think दो चीज़ें हमेशा लोगों के माइंड में, इन्वेस्टर्स के माइंड में आती हैं. इज दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी स्केलेबल? एज आई एम रिपीटिंग, देयर आर मोर अपॉर्चुनिटीज देन द कैपिटल अवेलेबल, विच इज़ वेरी क्लियर. दूसरा आपने बोला जैसे बायबैक्स आते हैं, विप्रो का एग्जांपल दिया. वो जो बायबैक्स होते हैं वो एक्चुअली बायबैक्स नहीं होते, वो डिविडेंड होता है. हम उसको नाम बायबैक दे देते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ टैक्स एफिशिएंसी, बट एक्चुअली उसमें आपका 3 या 4% स्टॉक ही या 2% ही जाएगा. अगर आप 100 शेयर होल्ड करते हैं तो आपके 2 या 3 शेयर जाएंगे. इफ़ यू आर एन HNI, आई एम एज्यूमिंग HNI इन्वेस्टर, जो दूसरी कैटेगरी है 2 लाख से नीचे, उसमें आपकी 7, 8, 10% तक चला जाएगा. बट HNI का 2-3-4% जाएगा. सो इज एक्चुअली अ डिविडेंड नॉट अ बायबैक. वी विल नॉट पार्टिसिपेट इन दोज बायबैक्स. बायबैक वहाँ पर है या टेंडर ऑफर्स वहाँ पर हैं जहाँ पर मैनेजमेंट चेंज होता है, 26% की ओपन ऑफर आती है, और आपको पता है कुछ इन्वेस्टर्स टेंडर इन नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि जैसा मैंने कहा ये इवेंट वो है जिससे कंपनी की कॉम्प्लेक्शन चेंज हो जाएगी. तो वहाँ पर आर्बिट्राजर्स नॉर्मली नहीं घुसते हैं.
Basically, you mean to say it's not arbitrage, it's a...
Yeah,
oh.
yeah.
So, but उसमें timeline is not clear.
हाँ, सो तीसरा आपका एस्पेक्ट था कि टाइमलाइन का, कि भाई पिरामल आज आ गया, हमें क्या पता था. टाइमलाइन मैंने जैसा कहा कि एक रिस्क है, वो इक्विटी में कभी भी नहीं होगा, बट उसके अंदर वैल्यू है. और क्वार्टर ऑन क्वार्टर मैनेजमेंट, अगर आप उसकी एनालिस्ट कॉल सुनो, पब्लिक डोमेन में है, वो कह रहा है कि वी आर मेकिंग एफर्ट्स टू अनवाइंड दिस वैल्यू, टू ब्रिंग दिस कैश विच इज लाइंग डेड इनटू द बुक्स. जैसे ही मार्केट मार्च में बोला, अब वो जनवरी टू मार्च मार्केट का सिनेरियो डिफरेंट था. जैसे ही मार्केट अभी उठी, अपॉर्चुनिटीज आई, दे वर द फर्स्ट वन टू सेल. सो आपको मैनेजमेंट की इंटेंट और जो पब्लिक डोमेन में बोल रही है, वो जब मार्केट सिनेरियो ठीक होगा तभी वैल्यू रियलाइज होगा. बट वो इवेंट होगा, उससे मैंने बताया जैसे आवर डियर फ्रेंड आस्क्ड, 4,500 करोड़ से करीब 15,000 करोड़ की कम से कम लैंडिंग करेंगे अगर 3x भी लेवरेज करें, जबकि ज़्यादा करेंगे. और इंक्रीमेंटल ROE उनकी 15% है. तो 600-700 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट आया. 600-700, अभी तो मैंने लेवरेज का इंपैक्ट नहीं लिया. 600-700 में अगर 10 बार भी दें तो 7,000 करोड़ की मार्केट कैप हुई, मोटा मोटी कैलकुलेशन. और 7,000 करोड़ की मार्केट कैप इंक्रीज हुई, अभी 20,000 करोड़ की है, तो 30% फायदा हो गया. अभी तो सिर्फ 10% ही आज बढ़ा. ये नहीं कह रहा कि कल बढ़ेगा, कहीं का ले जाके. व्हाट आई मेंट इज देयर गैप वाज सो ह्यूज कि वो इवेंट से कुछ तो प्लग होगा.
No, that I got.
That's what I said. Thank you.
And you were sorry. Anybody wants किसी और को भी पूछना है तो.
There is one sir, yeah, on the back. We should give him a chance. Yes.
सर ये अपॉर्चुनिटी है, जैसे TCS का बाई बैक करता है. अब बाई बैक का वो होने के बाद, क्योंकि कंपनी जो भी बाई बैक करती है वो कुछ ना कुछ सोच के इन्वेस्ट करती है. तो जैसे TCS का बाई बैक आया था, इज इट राइट टाइम टू परचेज TCS बिकॉज IT इंडस्ट्री इज गोइंग डाउन?
सर देखिए, स्पेशल सिचुएशन में जैसा मैंने कहा, मैं रिपीट करता हूँ, मुझे कंपनी क्या करेगी ऑपरेशनली वो व्यू नहीं लेना है. जहां आपने वो लिया वहीं आप फंडामेंटल्स में आ गए, तो वो प्योर वेनिला स्ट्रेटजी हो गई. इसमें सिर्फ मुझे बायबैक तक अपने को रेस्ट्रिक्ट करना है. और 3-4% का बायबैक इज अ डिविडेंड, इट इज नॉट अ बायबैक. TCS वॉज जस्ट अ way of returning excess cash or surplus money to the shareholders, which they could have done it either in the form of dividend or a buyback. They did it in the form of buyback, क्योंकि dividend में डबल टैक्सेशन आ गया, कंपनी भी पे करती है, आप भी पे करते हो.
नहीं सर, मेरी समझ में अभी नहीं आया. जैसे आपका कोई पर्टिकुलर शेयर 100 रुपीज़ में 150 बाई बैक कर रहे हैं.
सर मैंने आपको हिंट दिया, जहां 26% ऑफर आती है, हिंट
वो
तो दिया
वो,
मैंने आपको.
वो तो
आप अगर
अच्छी कंपनी में ही बंदा इन्वेस्ट करना चाहता है, अगर कोई ज़्यादा आ जाए तो हम फंसने का डर ज़्यादा रहता है, रिस्क ज़्यादा नहीं हो जाता?
सर नहीं सर, जहां 26% ओपन ऑफर आ रही है, इसका मतलब मैनेजमेंट चेंज हो रही है. और आप देखो कौन आ रही है, तो अगर आप गूगल करोगे तो मिल जाएगा कौन सी है, तो वहां पर आपको एनालाइज करने का है.
चलो ठीक है सर, थैंक यू.
थैंक यू.
I have one question. So my question is for Mr. Malik. So I have a little different question. Entry point for a credit AIF, or whenever you select a script for giving them giving them a loan, technically, is the exit point for any PE or VC technically? So in that case, how do you watertight your investment so that, मतलब there is an exit and you are entering, वो प्रॉफिट लेके ही एग्जिट कर रहे हैं, यहाँ उन्हें कोई रेड फ्लैग दिखा है, यहाँ से वो रेड फ्लैग डबल ना हो जाए, हाउ डू यू मेक श्योर?
करेक्ट. पहली बात तो डेट से इक्विटी, दैट लिंकेज टिपिकली डजंट हैपन, राइट. सो आप इस फंड में के थ्रू अगर आप पैसा दे रहे हैं तो किसी और डेट इन्वेस्टर को एग्जिट दे रहे हैं, दैट कैन बी अ क्वेश्चन.
प्रमोटर को उसको इक्विटी बायबैक करनी है, ठीक है, तो वो तो प्रॉफिट में लेके पी निकल गया और आप उसको डेट देके प्रमोटर को हेल्प कर रहे हो ना.
राइट राइट. सो मैंने पहले भी बोला था सर कि वी डोंट डू सो स्पेशल सिचुएशंस ऑन फिक्स्ड इनकम इज व्हाट वी डोंट डू. सो दैट इज व्हाट आई सेड विच इज द 16-18% प्लस वाला जो ब्रैकेट बकेट है, वो वाले सेगमेंट में हम ऑपरेट नहीं करते हैं. वी ओनली लेंड टू ऑपको ऑपरेटिंग कंपनीज वेयर देयर इज कैश फ्लो. आई एम नॉट गिविंग अ money to a promoter for a buyback, for an M&A, for a LAS, for sort of any special situation kind of a transaction is what. तो वो वाला क्योंकि उसका रिटर्न प्रोफाइल ही अलग है, वो 18-20% प्लस है, तो वो सेगमेंट. सो एज आई सेड वी ओनली ऑपरेट इन ऑपरेटिंग कंपनी को फाइनेंसिंग वेयर अगेंस्ट कैश फ्लो.
So shall I ask? इधर ठीक है. Okay. So one question for Viral sir also. You told you invest in cycles and all. So is it not again subjective to determine at the right time which cycle is in, and both of you, I have one question. Both of you were active. I think during COVID time, what was the things? यानी उस time क्या हुआ था? यानी that way, both of you.
Yeah, sure. So, is it subjective? Yes. There is no sort of quantitative or AI model which will come and say, okay, cycle ये हो रहा है, right? So, I agree, right? So, अपने को क्या पढ़ा गया? So, think of 2020, right? Tata Steel returns were zero. 1992, Tata Steel was 275 rupees. 2020 Tata Steel was 275 rupees. Dividend मिला आपको बीच में. So you can make an argument. Tata Steel is a clean company, as clean as they come, right? Tata है. You can take कि अच्छा साला स्टील में उसका जो बेस्ट स्टील कंपनी है, if not best but a good steel company है, 30 साल रिटर्न नहीं बनते, मैं साइक्लिकल्स में इन्वेस्ट ही नहीं करूँगा. That is one view to take. And I think बहुत सारे मार्केट ने वो व्यू ले चुके हैं. 2021 में क्या हुआ? Tata Steel made more money than Tata Consultancy, TCS. Right? Now, rewind, right? Step back. Between 92 and 2020, Tata Steel adjusted for the split. 80 रुपए के ऊपर 4 बार गया, 20 रुपए के नीचे 4 बार गया. That is there an opportunity to buy at that price, right? And sort of to your sort of previous question, मेरे को नहीं पता. 20 रुपए में मेरे को नहीं पता है कि कब स्टील साइकिल टर्न होगा, right? There are 12-18 months we are just sitting doing nothing, right? So those things happen. But what happens is कि जैसे हमने टीम पे बात नहीं किया, but one of my sort of fellow co-founders, he has been tracking steel for last 20 years, right? वो हर 2 साल वेदांता के बोर्ड को जाके प्रेजेंट करता था. तो we have a better probability of being right. Probability is the operating word. हम हमेशा right नहीं होते. But जब भी आप वो एक साइकिल पकड़ते हो ना, एंड जब आप राइट जाते हो, तो आपका इतना बड़ा अल्फा आता है, इट टेक्स अवे जो आपका जो मिडलिंग पीरियड था ना, जब कुछ नहीं बना, it takes away. So I think it's slide number 16 or something. Unfortunately, it didn't come up. That was the only slide I wanted to show you, right? So that is how you sort of run through cycles. अब you have to study cycles. मतलब metals short cycle होता है. आप कोई भी स्टील, एल्यूमिनियम 2-3 साल में उसका भाव ऊपर नीचे होता है. आपके जो ट्रक के साइकिल होते हैं, सीवीड साइकिल, वो 5 साल के होते हैं. आपके जो फाइनेंशियल्स NBFC कंपनीज होते हैं, उसके 10-10 साल के होते हैं. तो बहुत लोगों को नहीं पता होगा, बट 1998 में इंडिया में 4000 NBFCs थे. 5 साल बाद 20 ढंग के NBFC बचे, जिसमें से एक कोटक बैंक हो गया, एक श्रीराम ट्रांसपोर्ट हो गया. आज जो बच गया वो सब राइट गॉड बन गए. बट दैट्स हाउ बैड अ साइकिल कैन बी. बट अगेन यू कैन लुक एट कि अरे ये NBFC में लूँगा ही नहीं, 99.5% ऑफ प्रोबेबिलिटी ऑफ फेलियर है. और जो बाकी 20 बने, at the worst of the cycle, if you can find out survivors, you will do very well. Second part I will take before I give into it. COVID में क्या किया, right? So we did a very simple exercise, maybe we got lucky, कि एक कंपनी का शेयर के भाव में 1 साल का प्रॉफिट का क्या वैल्यू है. अगर आप 100 रुपये देते हो एक कंपनी का शेयर खरीदने, तो 1 साल के प्रॉफिट का क्या वैल्यू है 100 में से. 100 रुपये तो आप इन्फिनिटी के लिए दे रहे हो ना, तो 7 रुपये गिव और टेक. हर बिर का 8 आएगा, मेरा 6 आएगा, बट गिव और टेक 7 रुपये. मतलब अगर कोविड, हाँ नहीं DCF हो गया, अगर कोविड की वजह से एक साल प्रॉफिट नहीं आएगा कंपनी का, जीरो प्रॉफिट आएगा, पूरे मार्केट का जीरो प्रॉफिट आएगा, तो बाजार 60% गिरना चाहिए था, बाजार 35% गिरा था. नाउ दैट इज द टाइम यू वांट टू पंप अप द रिस्क, राइट, यू वांट टू रियली इंक्रीज द रिस्क. तो तभी हमारा पोर्टफोलियो 80% मिड एंड स्मॉल कैप था एट द पीक ऑफ कोविड. सो व्हेन दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ टर्न अराउंड हैपेंड, राइट, वो 12 रुपये का NAV 32 रुपया या 34 रुपया हो गया, राइट. सो दैट्स व्हाट वी डू. एंड देन फिर लास्ट 1.5-2 साल से कुछ नहीं कर रहे, वी आर मिडलिंग. कुछ 31% रिटर्न होगा, बट 30 में से शायद 15% लास्ट 2 महीने में आएगा, राइट. सो दैट्स हाउ इट इज. सो व्हेन यू आर सॉर्ट ऑफ एट ए बैड साइकिल, यू बिकम एग्रेसिव. पोर्टफोलियो में आप बीटा बढ़ाते हो, रिस्क बढ़ाते हो, यू गो टू स्मॉलर स्टॉक्स. एंड व्हेन द साइकिल इज गुड, एवरीवन इज हैप्पी, you sort of reduce the risk. नुकसान नहीं करना. That's what we sort of try and invest through cycles. And sort of I gave you a flavor of COVID.
Okay, let me add. I think Viral added most of the things. Cycles मेरे हिसाब से, हमारे हिसाब से बड़ा easy होता है predict करना. You know, I'm just trying to compliment what he said. Easy क्यों होता है मैं आपको बताता हूँ. आप कोई भी सेक्टर बताइए, स्टील क्यों easy था. टाइमलाइन नहीं प्रिडिक्ट कर सकते, बट आपको ये दिख जाता है कि आप बॉटम पे हो. टाटा स्टील जैसी कंपनी लॉस बना रही है. क्या सारी बेस्ट कंपनी है, लोएस्ट कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन है, अगर कोई सर्वाइव करेगा तो वही सर्वाइव करेगा. तो क्या हुआ, जहाँ 20 प्लेयर थे स्टील के, वहाँ पर 19 प्लेयर या 20 के 20 लोग लॉस बना रहे हैं. तो क्या होगा, जो इंक्रीमेंटली मार्जिनली जिसकी कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन हाई है, उसमें से 10 प्लेयर बंद हो जाएंगे, अपना प्लांट बंद कर देंगे. तो आपकी सप्लाई कम हो गई, डिमांड कम थी. वो जो सिर्फ फिक्स कॉस्ट निकाल रहे हैं अपनी, वो चलाते रहेंगे. एक साल और चला आपकी साइकिल डाउन, तो जो एक साल अभी तक चला रहे थे, जो ब्रेक इवन पे थे, वो भी लॉस में आ गए. टाटा स्टील चलो नेट लेवल पे है, बट इबिटा लेवल पे फिर भी बना रहा है. तो आपके 5 प्लेयर रह गए. इसका मतलब सप्लाई इतनी कम हो गई. डिमांड एकदम इतनी ड्रास्टिकली रिड्यूस कभी भी नहीं होती है. स्टील प्लांट तो आपने आज एक दिन में बंद कर दिया, यू कैन क्लोज इट एंड शट इट, 10 मिलियन टन कैपेसिटी, बट डिमांड डज नॉट फॉल दैट ड्रास्टिकली, मे बी 2%, 3%. सो डिमांड होती है तो क्या होता है, धीरे धीरे फिर अब सप्लाई बंद हो चुकी है, एंड यू कैन नॉट स्टार्ट योर स्टील प्लांट ओवरनाइट, इट टेक्स टाइम. सो देन बिकॉज डिमांड इज देयर, देन प्राइसेस स्टेबलाइज एंड स्टार्ट राइजिंग. So the likes of Tata Steel, you now feel that 15 players are out of the market. So this is you're at the bottom of the cycle. How long it will take, we don't know. This happened in telecom. I will give you an example. Telecom में आप कहोगे कैसे cyclicality आ गई, कैसे bottom of the cycle पकड़ लिया. 16 licenses companies को license मिल गया, रह गए तीनों लॉस बना रहे हैं. क्या कोई बिजनेस लॉस के लिए चलेगा कभी? We all are businessmen in some or the other way. तो प्राइजेस तो बढ़ना ही था, आरपू तो बढ़ना ही है, जस्ट अ मैटर ऑफ टाइम. मे बी जो लार्जेस्ट प्लेयर एलिफेंट है, ही इज जस्ट वेटिंग कि जो 3rd या 4th प्लेयर है वो भी कब विकेट डाउन हो. तो वहां पर भारतीय एयरटेल, जो बेस्ट कंपनी, प्रोफेशनली मैनेज, was available at $300, and they did a rights issue also, if you recall.
तो इस टाइम एयरलाइंस में दिस इज हैपनिंग.
सो अभी एयरलाइंस में इंडिगो कहीं भी नहीं आया. वहां पे एक प्लेयर तो विकेट डाउन है. इंडिगो को लॉस बनाना पड़ेगा तो मेरे लिए डिस्ट्रेस होगा.
ओके.
तो डिस्ट्रेस तो मैं तभी खेलूंगा. शुगर में ऐसा होता है. भारतीय एयरटेल, रिलायंस, टेलीकॉम, वोडाफोन सब लॉस बना रहे थे. क्या सारी कंपनीज लॉस बनाती रहेंगी? द आंसर इज नो. हाँ, कितने टाइम में ठीक होगा? फर्स्ट वॉज कैपिटल डाली, उसने राइट्स इशू लिया. तो जो लोग सोच रहे थे अरे लॉस बना रही है, इसमें राइट इशू क्या लेना, दे मिस द बस. So lot of opportunities come during the 3-year, 5-year time frame where you will find companies going through that cyclical phase, and that's why I said cycles predict करना easy है. But कब ऊपर मूव आएगा, कब सुपर मूव आएगा, वो हमारे लिए पॉसिबल नहीं है. बट ये पता लग जाता है कि now it is at the trough, something has to happen, वरना हमारे सबके मोबाइल फोन बंद हो जाएंगे. I hope I answered your question.
थैंक यू. बट इन स्पेशल सिचुएशन व्हाट वाज द पोजीशन इन कोविड? वो तो लेके बैठे हैं, तो वो तो
सर कोविड में हमें तब एक कंपनी ऐसी थी जो डिफॉल्ट कर रही थी, यूरेका फोर्स में नाम ले देता हूँ, आई शुडंट बी टेकिंग नेम्स. जो स्टर्लिंग एंड विल्सन सोलर एक कंपनी आई थी, उनकी शाहपुर जी पालन जी की, वो डिफॉल्ट कर रही थी. हम सबके घर में एक एक्वागार्ड लगा हुआ है. हम कोई नहीं कहता वाटर फिल्टर लगा है. सो वाटर फिल्टर इज एक्वागार्ड, एक्वागार्ड इज वाटर फिल्टर. They have 70% market share. एयर प्यूरीफायर, सबको कोविड में एयर प्यूरीफायर चाहिए था. देन वैक्यूम क्लीनर, सबकी मेडे तो चली गई थी, तो सबको घर में खुद वैक्यूम क्लीनर हस्बैंड्स को करना था. सॉरी लेडीज, बट सो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज, ऐसी कंपनी का ग्रुप कंपनी डिफॉल्ट कर रही थी, उसका स्पिल ओवर इफेक्ट इस पे आया. स्टॉक वेंट डाउन एंड द मैनेजमेंट केम. शपूरजी पालनजी डिफॉल्ट तो करेगा नहीं, टाटा सन्स का 18% स्टेक. दे सेड वी विल मोनेटाइज द रिसीवेबल्स, वी विल ब्रिंग इन अ स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर. वो जो लाइन थी पब्लिक में, आप गूगल करिए, दैट वाज एनफ फॉर अस टू टेक एन इन्वेस्टमेंट डिसीजन. अब वो किस शेप में आएगी आप मेरे से पूछो. सो लॉट ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स कॉल्ड अस कि आपने तो लॉस मेकिंग कंपनी में कर रहे हो यार, आप क्या कर रहे हो. बट आई सेड ट्रस्ट अस, अवॉइड द नॉइज. एंड वो कंपनी ने धीरे धीरे, एक्चुअली वो फिर एडवेंट इंटरनेशनल को प्राइवेट इक्विटी दिया, वहाँ से भी डबल है. और फिर अब दे हैव ब्रॉट इन मिस्टर पोटा, मैनेजमेंट चेंज, who was the CEO of Domino's. So consumer company. अभी लास्ट वीक मुझे आया कोई लार्ज ब्रोकिंग ग्रुप बॉम्बे से खरीद रहा है, इट विल बी डबल. दैट्स नॉइज. आई सेड दिस इज नॉइज, इग्नोर इट, स्टिक टू फंडामेंटल्स. यस. यस. हाँ जी सर. सर जैसा मैंने कहा, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, कोई भी मैंने आपको, जैसे मैं कोई भी एग्जांपल दूंगा नेट को, इन्वेस्टर्स को चाहिए ये क्वार्टर क्या होगा, ये महीना क्या होगा, ये हफ्ता क्या होगा, वो वाले रिटर्न्स हैं. या ब्रांडेड कंपनीज में वो रिस्क डिस्ट्रेस में मैं आपको बताऊं कि मैं बिल्कुल बॉटम पे खरीद रहा हूँ, लॉस मेकिंग, वो इन्वेस्टर्स का एपिटाइट नहीं है और उस रिटर्न्स मैक्सिमम उसी में है. इन्फोसिस में लास्ट 1 साल 2 साल रिटर्न देख लो, एचडीएफसी में लास्ट 3-4 साल में रिटर्न नहीं है. सेफ्टी है, लोगों को इक्विटी भी चाहिए और सेफ्टी भी चाहिए, which is not there. And what I am saying is, lot of such opportunities exist.
So one question from Mahir also. Yes, just one question left. Okay. So
Sure.
Mahir, in your this fund, foreign citizens are allowed? They can put in?
So currently we are not accepting citizens from the US, but NRIs, foreign nationals, are allowed. And this is a specific, like this has been provided in the IFSCA fund management entity regulations. So
US are not allowed.
So US we are not accepting because we are investing in the US markets only. So any person outside India, person including both individuals as well as entities, so permissible.
So there's an add-on to that question, Mihir, from my end. So Gift City ideally is supposed to focus more on inward remittances, investment coming into India or going out of India. How? So is it a proposition for Indian investors investing abroad, or more for international investors investing in India? And how does the dollar movement happen, especially with the TCS being raised on LRS for Indian citizens?
Sure. So first to answer like the question, like the very first question, that the objective always was twofold. That they want, it was essentially Gift City is India's gateway to the global capital markets. So both ways is what was envisaged from the beginning. So resident Indians investing into the global markets by default, and non-resident Indians, foreign nationals coming into India. Now a third avenue invariably got opened because of us only, where non-residents coming to Gift City, investing into a global market. So that happened. Now in terms of the business growth that we have seen so far in Gift City, majority of the funds that have domiciled in Gift City are foreign money investing into the Indian markets, typically by way of the AIF route. Very few firms are actually, in fact, less than 5 as of today, are actually investing into the global markets, setting up funds. So, and we are perhaps the first fund house to have actually started that. So that's number one. Now, how does the dollar remittances happen? So yes, so they happen through the liberalized remittance scheme for resident Indian individuals. Typically, Gift City regulations require that our collection account has to be in Gift City. But because Gift City is an offshore jurisdiction, so typically that remittance comes under an international fund transfer and hence the requirement of LRS. In fact, here, the operational ease as far as non-residents is, this is something which, I'd like to kind of reiterate or maybe, highlight, that non-resident Indians or foreign nationals are not required to open any bank account in India. So operationally, a very big hassle has been solved for non-resident Indians. They can directly, sitting like wherever their accounts are sitting, maybe Africa, Middle East, Singapore, they can directly make dollar-to-dollar remittances to Gift City.
And that means that they don't need to have a PIS and all those.
Absolutely not. The very simple reason being that Gift City itself is not regulated by RBI. There are select aspects like resident Indian investors opening their foreign currency accounts in Gift City for specific purposes. So that comes under RBI jurisdiction. But otherwise, the IFSCA, which is the International Financial Services Centers Authority, enjoys its status as a unified regulator. So all businesses, right from broking, portfolio management, investment advisory, fund structures, even banking, is actually coming under the IFSCA. So that is operationally a very big hassle for like foreign nationals and non-residents solved. And now addressing the last question, so the 20% TCS. So yes, I mean the way we look at it is that it is definitely a cash flow issue because TCS typically it really functions as an advance tax. But what happens is that because as per the Gift City regulations, the minimum ticket size for a PMS is $150,000 US, so slightly more than an AIF. Investor has to arrange for $180,000 US while making that investment. So there is definitely a cash flow issue. Possibly the investor, and especially if the investor is an HNI, ultra HNI, who would any which ways be paying lakhs in taxes, he or she will end up paying lesser self-assessment tax at the time of filing income tax returns. So it is more a cash flow management issue. In fact, our clients and even prospects are kind of divided. Typically salaried individuals who are, accumulating funds only to make such an investment, for them it has been some bit of a challenge because now they need to arrange for more. But some HNI clients were like pretty much okay with it. They were averse to it. So that is, they were like that, okay, we'll pay that much self-assessment tax less at a later date. So, yeah? No. No, so here there is no NRO NRE account. Here, resident individuals having their own local bank accounts, they submit the form A2 to their banks. Their funds get converted into the US dollars and then they get remitted in the US dollars to Gift City. That is the process where TCS is getting deducted. This was announced at the recent budget. It has been raised to 20%. Before that, it was around 5%. TCS है सर वो नहीं लगता है. No, so here typically we have our own collection account which is set up in Gift City. If money is getting remitted to Gift City or any payment under LRS, in fact, I cover a broader gamut here. Any remittance under LRS, be it traveling, be it education, be it touring. So education, there are some exemptions, even medical. But maintenance of close relatives, traveling, purchase of immovable property outside, everything comes under TCS. Yes, a lot of news articles have focused on typically traveling and investments. I mean, they've really focused more on those. But any remittance under LRS is subject to TCS. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shivam. I'm a business development director at Nuvama, which was erstwhile Edelweiss Wealth Management. First of all, I wanted to congratulate Mr. Harbir for a wonderful event. And to all the four speakers, it was a pleasure listening to all of you. So a common theme, in all the four presentations was that we all agree that AIF PMS space as an industry as a whole is growing tremendously. And I believe that all the stakeholders have played a part in it. The producers like you, the distributors who are here, the service providers like us, we are ourselves custodians and fund accountants, and of course the regulator. They have played a role in simplifying the rules and regulations. My question to you is, as the producers, as PMS, as AIFs, what are your expectations from the other players in this ecosystem, the distributors? Of course, one is they need to sell your products. But apart from that, what do you expect from them? What are the synergies that you look at? And especially the service providers as well, the custodians, the fund accountants. What are your expectations from them to take this industry forward and to help you to ease the operational hassle so that you can focus on, where to put the money and generate the alphas?
Which one of you will take this? Right.
Yeah, I will go first. I will try to give a shot to what you asked. I think expectations हैं, regulations बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. It is getting over-regulated. That's number one. Second, in terms of size, small boutique firms are being driven out of the business. अभी Association of Portfolio Managers बन गया है, fee charges increase हो रहा है. So जो boutique firms है उनके लिए difficult होता जा रहा है, जबकि entrepreneurship should be encouraged. So the cost of doing business should be minimized. Third is structurally बहुत सारे कई बार tax inefficiencies हैं AIF और PMS में जहाँ clarity नहीं है, जहाँ पे government regulators should come forward and provide clarity on those issues. I think, and lastly, commissions में I think the regulator is trying to make it a level playing field. They should do that. There have been so many changes कि वो ट्रैक करने के लिए आपको 2 आदमी रखने पड़ते हैं कि अभी चेंज क्या हो गया. So I know the industry is evolving, it is going ahead, it's moving ahead, but financialization of Indian markets will happen. People have realized these are going to be the products. और अगर आप US में देखें तो hedge fund industry is the largest financial capital market related, high yield debt के different forms, and then issuing securities across capital structures. वो यहाँ पर होता ही नहीं है. आज कोई प्रेफरेंशियल इशू करने जाए और लिस्ट कराने जाए वो 18 महीने से ऊपर इशू करा ही नहीं सकता. सो आई कैन नॉट प्ले कंपनी अक्रॉस द कैपिटल स्ट्रक्चर. या तो मुझे डेट लेना है जो थोड़ा इलिक्विड है या इक्विटी लेना है, जबकि मैं इतने सारे इंस्ट्रूमेंट डिजाइन कर सकता हूं जिसमें मैं प्ले कर सकता हूं. सो द रेगुलेटर्स एंड द की बिग लाइक नुवामा, IFL, they have to go to the regulators and tell them these are the securities that exist in overseas markets which are more efficient and which are in the interest of all should be brought into the markets. India की market size बहुत बड़ी है और ये बढ़ने ही वाली है. So these are some of the things that I would like. Thank you.
Anyone? So there are a couple of points.
Let's quickly wrap this up here and
Sure.
just shortly and quickly answer this, and we'll wrap it up for dinner. We can have question and answers, more question and answers after the question.
Sure. Sure. 2 points which perhaps come to like my mind, and I am very fairly new to this industry. I really feel blessed to be sharing with the stage with veterans. First is investor education is very important because these are different structures. I'll not say complex structures, but they are very, very different structures which give investors an opportunity to do something which is unconventional. It is not complicated, it is unconventional. Many a times at the root, at the bedrock of a lot of these unconventional things are very, very simple things, but because perhaps the nomenclature is different or the names are different, so that is one problem. So investor education. Second, perhaps wealth advisors, fund accountants. So increasingly, because data-driven thing was the theme which was given to me. So increasingly across the globe, if we see investment products, there is a lot of information that is getting passed on to investors. Information which is of course excluding the noise. And in our opinion, a lot of fund accountants, distributors have a very critical role to play in passing on the right set of information to the clients, giving the right set of insights, keeping the investors updated about what is really happening in the market, how are the investment teams looking at them, and then accordingly making it very, very transparent so that investors also have a visibility. That even if markets are, let's say, doing very well, they can keep their expectations reasonable. That okay, now is a time to kind of step back.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Okay, just one word on this. You know, growth solves all problems. Right? My TCS mein tha, my boss told me 25 years back, growth solves all problems. So as I mentioned, सिर्फ 1.25 लाख family ने PMS में invest किया है, right? वो हो जाएगा, सब solve हो जाएगा. Growth solves all problems.
Right. Thank you, everyone. And I think we can take further questions one-on-one over dinner. Dinner is served. We can all join together and dine together. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a great part for today's evening. One-on-one sessions you guys can conduct, and the dinner is served. So I hope you guys have a great time. Thank you so much and have a lovely day ahead.